Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5th National Summit on Preventing Youth Violence, presented by the National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention and the My Brother's Keeper Task Force. Please welcome to the stage the Chief of Staff for the Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs, Mr. Theron Pride.
Thank you and good morning. Oh, you're gonna make my job difficult. Thank you and good morning. Welcome to our 5th National Summit on Preventing Youth Violence. We are delighted to have you here. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it in early this morning. We know many more will be joining us throughout the day. I know even getting in to Baltimore, there was an accident, so I know a lot of people are still making their way up. But as best you can, feel free, squeeze in. Make sure you have space for others as they come in. And just know that you are about to witness and be a part of something special. This is not just about the National Forum cities or the Defending Childhood communities or those participating in community-based violence prevention. It's not only about the cities that we've invested in at the Department of Justice and across the administration. It is really about a movement of deciding that no longer will we accept kids killing kids, that we truly believe that this is a problem that has a solution, one in which we can and will solve. And so you are a part of this movement by way of being here and by the work that you're doing and will continue to do when you go back into your communities. So I am excited to start this program and have all of us together engage in a dialogue about what we can do in our respective communities to address this critical problem. But again, youth violence is not inevitable, it is preventable. Now, I do have some housekeeping things that I have to do, and I have to speak in a language that I'm not really familiar with, and that's social media. I need to let you know that we have hashtags. Please don't ask me too much about that. But I know people are tweeting, and I understand there's retweets. Again, I'm just using words here that I don't know a whole lot about. But if you know what I'm speaking of, then you know that you can follow this conversation and that you can check in by way of the hashtags, and you should see that in your materials. We're also live streaming today. As I understand that, that's a camera that's going to be on most of us throughout the day while we're in here filming and showing what we're doing. So we certainly want to welcome those who are viewing this online. And so with the hashtags we're using, I know many of you might be familiar with hashtag National Forum or hashtag NBK and hashtag YVP Summit. You can check in and you can tell people why you're here. You can tell them and give them a reason as to what brought you here to this important summit. We want to have a national conversation, so as I understand it, these hashtags and other means of communication will allow us to push that out. So I encourage you to tweet, retweet as you do. And I apologize if my grandmother is watching online and tweeting. I have no control over her Twitter account. That said, also be mindful that we'll have press in and out today. They'll also want to probably pull you aside if they can, if you're open to it, to have a conversation, interview you, talk to you about your work. I hope you'll take them up on that if you're so invited and asked to do. We think it's so important that it's not just about what happens in this room and the conversations that we have, but we think it's really important that people outside of this room and the communities across this country really get a chance to hear about the promising approaches many of you are taking in your communities to address this issue. Far too many people feel that this is something that can't be solved, but you all in your respective communities have found solutions and strategies that are working. So we want you to share that with as many people as possible. So I invite you to also take advantage of that. I also want to, again, just echo a hearty thanks on behalf of this administration. A lot of this work for the department and for the federal agencies has been going on for decades, but under the Obama administration, a lot of it started in 2010. The president called his cabinet together and he said that we have to address this issue. We have to help our communities. We have to, at the federal level, work in such a way to be supportive of what they're trying to do at the local. And true to form, in tough times, we made the ask of you with no money. We asked you to do a whole lot more with still a whole lot less. But you all, as a testament to you being here now, show that even with little, there can be much that can be accomplished. And so we want to thank you for all that you've done in service to this work and to partnering with us. Now, the other thing I want to cover is I had the privilege of acknowledging a lot of people throughout the day. For me, this is a special summit. I know that for this administration, it will be our last summit. But the work will continue, but throughout our time today, I hope to be able to call out and acknowledge a lot of people who make this work possible and make it happen. And so if you would just permit me some extra time today to do that, I would be appreciative. I do want to let you know that as you look at the agenda, you'll see that we're going to do these videos that are going to show a lot of the progress, highlight some of the progress in the communities that we've been involved in. And so throughout the day, you'll have a little bit of these commercial breaks on the forum, on defending childhood, on community-based violence prevention, on My Brother's Keeper. And so we'll run those videos today and tomorrow and on Wednesday. And I hope that gives you a chance to also see again the great work that's happening. But because it takes a full team to make all this happen, both at the communities, the local level, and at the federal level, I do want to turn to and acknowledge, she's not expecting this, but I want to acknowledge at the top, before we get into our introductions of our speakers, I want to acknowledge someone who's been near and dear and special to me at the Office of Justice Programs, who has been a big champion of violence prevention and has really helped the department lead an effort to coordinate federal law enforcement with local law enforcement. I know that recently she had to say farewell to her mom, who passed, who lived a life of 97 years. And it was tough for all of us to see her lose her mom. But this is a champion at the department who loves the work that she does and has been a fighter for us in our office for years. And with this administration, she continues to be that strong support. And so I would just so love it if we could give her a thank you for all of her work that she's done, both to support the National Forum, the Violence Reduction Network, and a range of other things at the department to address violence. Her name is Beth McGarry, and she's our principal deputy at the Office of Justice Programs. And if you could, Beth, please stand and get a hand clap. Love her dearly, and she is the person that I turn to and have to call on when I get tired and overwhelmed. I don't know who she goes to. Maybe she goes to Carol. But she's a great resource, and I hope a lot of you get to meet her today. And so now I get to do one of the, maybe for the last time, before you all, but a very special opportunity. I get to introduce, she hates it when we call her our boss. She's really the leader of the Office of Justice Programs. She is a huge champion at the Department of Justice for our work on trying to address not only youth violence, but children's exposure to violence. She has led the department both as a Deputy Associate Attorney General and now as the Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Justice Programs. She is so humble. She will never take credit for any of the work. She will always say it was one of us who did it. But largely, Carol Mason is the heart of the Office of Justice Programs, and she drives this work. And so it is my pleasure to be able to finally, for this last time at this summit, introduce to you not only our leader, but a dear friend and colleague, a big champion of the department for this work. And so if you would do me the honor of please standing for this special person and giving her a warm hand clap and making her feel welcome this morning, please welcome Carol Mason.
You can sit down. Thank you. And it's no fair that he's making me cry, so I have this here with me. It's not fancy, it's a paper towel. Point of personal privilege, and I was going to pretend this wasn't our last summit. We're unfortunately going to be doing a series of things where we're saying this is the last of this and the last of that. But it's only the last of it from this perspective, from this side of the table, because it's never going to be the last of this for us, for our commitment to this work, because all of us who have to leave on January 20th, 2017, will be arm in arm with you to continue this great work that you're doing. We didn't get you started to leave you. We're part of you. So thank you, Theron, and I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. They love to give me prepared remarks, and they love to take their names out of the remarks as if they don't think I can say them without having it printed. So I don't know, you should, but I don't know if you all know the history of the Forum on Youth Violence Prevention, but Theron Pride is the reason why we're here and why we have these convenings. So if you would join me in thanking Theron for his work over the past nearly 8 years. And Ed Chung just moved. He's being slick because he knew, Ed, you might as well just come back because I'll keep calling your name until you surface. Ed Chung, who took his name out of my remarks as if he really thought that could work. And he's running around, but Ed Chung, and when he comes back in, did he come back in yet? All right, when he comes back in, no matter what's happening, whoever has the mic, call him out, okay? Is that a deal? So Ed Chung, who is one of my senior policy advisors, who's just been amazing. He's got a history in civil rights. He's got a history of having served on the Hill and the White House, and his network and his resources have been just so invaluable in helping us plan this today. So he can hear you if you join me in thanking Ed Chung. And the last two, but not, there's many people here who, again, will be called out throughout the day. So if your name's not called, it is not because I'm not recognizing you and don't appreciate how much work you've done. But I've got to call out. Now, they know I confused their names, but you'll see they don't look alike. But Jeroma Boyd and Georgina McDowell, please stand up. Come on, y'all, stand up. I walked in and I was talking to Jeroma, and then Georgina walked up and I said, "Hey, Jeroma, it's the G's." But they are a fabulous dynamic duo. So I am delighted to welcome you here to Baltimore and thrilled, if you can't tell, and I'm going to be here all 3 days, driving in every morning to be here with you all because this is important, and to join and hear from our distinguished speakers and guests for this 5th National Summit on Preventing Youth Violence. And I'm honored that Secretary King and will be joining us shortly, and my friend from the White House, Broderick Johnson, as well as two of our favorite, well, you're all favorite, but two special mayors are joining us today, Sam Riccardo and Mayor Libby Schaaf, and the former mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter. They're all going to be on the program today, and I will have the privilege this afternoon, because I know you're all going to be excited to hear from my boss, the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch. So I want to begin again by thanking all of you. Thank you for your commitment to reducing violence in your communities and for the work that you're doing to expand opportunities for our young people. So I really want to thank you all, so please thank yourselves. And what you don't know is, well, you should know, but in case you don't know, you all are the model that we refer to many times about the success of your work, the success of your approach, and the success of your passion. You have inspired us with your energy and commitment, and we're grateful for all you do, and we are so proud to call you our partners. We've got a busy day, a busy few days ahead, and I know that you're eager to hear from the speakers, but I want to take a moment to thank those of you all who've planned this. So people from OCOM, stand up, you're here. Our Office of Communications, don't look like you don't know who you are, Michelle. Stand up, you guys. And can our federal partners who are here in the audience stand up as well? Because we've got many agencies represented who are here. Let's join me in thanking them, because the beauty, as Theron mentioned, the beauty and the hallmark of this administration is how we work across discipline, work across agencies. So the behavior that we ask you, the partnerships we ask you to form, we're doing the same thing, and we're learning from you all and working across disciplines. So you'll see a lot of folks here today who are doing that. I want to also make sure that you recognize the part of OJP that is really responsible for all of this work. And that's the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, starting with its visionary leader, Bob Listenby. Bob, will you stand up so we can recognize you? And as I mentioned, that Georgina and Jerome are the ones who oversee the forum's day-to-day activities and who oversaw the logistical details, and you know what a superb job they've done. But I also want to acknowledge others from OJJDP, many of whom are here in the audience. Would you please stand up so we can acknowledge and recognize your hard work as well? There they go. And as I've mentioned, our federal partners across the department are critical to this work, but also our partners on Capitol Hill. The commitment to this effort runs to the highest levels, and behind each of these leaders is a host of dedicated staff working hard to make this vision a reality. And I want to thank everybody who's joined us from across the country for what we hope will be a real dialogue on how we prevent youth violence. For those of you who've read the newspapers over the weekend here in Baltimore, we had another tragedy with a young artist who'd been working hard to fight violence, who was murdered himself. But we're not going to be discouraged by these things. We're going to use these things as an opportunity to make sure that we're doing something to change this so these things don't continue to happen. As Theron says frequently, we know how to fix this problem. All of you in this room know how to fix the problem, and you're working hard to do that through these partnerships. So I want to make sure that you all stay encouraged and don't let these unfortunate tragedies discourage you. It just ought to fire you up to work even harder. So the wonderful thing about this work is that we involve young people. Many young folks are here today. If you're young, and if you have to ask what young means, that means you should not stand up. So will the young folk in the room please stand up and be recognized? So you're going to hear from many of them, and you can see their speaker badges. They're going to be speakers, and they bring a vital perspective to this work. How can we talk about preventing youth violence and not hear from youth? How can we do this work without understanding what they think needs to be done? While we all have the best intentions, we don't know what it's like to walk in their shoes today, because the world is very different from them than when we came along. And so it's important that we hear from them, and that's been a hallmark of this work, is that they are engaged arm in arm with us in this work. So I also want to acknowledge that we have some outstanding researchers joining us for a research symposium on youth violence prevention that will start later today. They're joining us today for the early part so they can hear some of the wonderful work you're doing. And we owe so much of the knowledge and insights they bring to our work to them, and I'm eager to hear what they have to share with us, and that they are committed to continuing to study this issue. So we're grateful to have them with us here today. I know I see some of the folks around who are researchers, so thank you all. So these are challenging times, as I mentioned, here in Baltimore and in cities across the country. Crime rates are down nationally, a point that's always worth keeping in mind, but that doesn't change the fact that some communities, our communities, particularly certain parts of those communities, are struggling. And when I say ours, I mean our communities that are primarily communities of color, primarily communities where there are more pockets of poverty than in other communities. And so we hear it in the news. Homicides are up in some cities. Violence is taking hold in places. We've even heard some alarms about the coming new crime wave, a claim, by the way, that is backed by little evidence. Our researchers are here, and they can confirm that. There isn't the evidence that indicates that we're on the verge of a new spike in crime, but what we do have, we need to address. So whatever the evidence shows, on some level, what really matters is what we're each seeing on the ground in our own communities. We know that for many of us, we see a continuing cycle of displacement, disorder, and violence, much of it affecting our youth. At the Department of Justice, we know how hard these problems hit you and your communities. We know that you, more than anyone, know that you're at the center of all of it, and we know that it's easy, as I said earlier, to get discouraged, but we can't get discouraged. We've got to make sure that we keep moving forward, because you're making tremendous progress, as you're going to find out today through the next few days. But I urge you to continue to make a difference. It's making a difference. Your work is making a difference because it's helping our young people. And these are going to be our future leaders. And I'll tell you that every time I meet and talk with these young folks, I come away encouraged. I'm going to admit my age. I'm almost 60. And so I worry about who's coming next. until I meet these young folks and I go, we're in good hands. But we'll be even in better hands if we make sure that we're creating opportunities for all young people. It's making a difference because we're strengthening our communities, and it's making a difference because we're giving hope that there's a way to turn tough situations and tragedies into good. We should never, ever underestimate the power of hope. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said that even in the inevitable moments when all seem hopeless, men know that without hope they cannot really live. So remember that. Remember that you are giving people a reason to carry on. We're giving people hope. We'll hear throughout this summit the amazing things that you guys are doing that are happening in the cities across the country. The Attorney General will talk about it this afternoon, about some of the great progress you're all making, and you're achieving remarkable things, and it's because you see the challenge of youth violence in the way that few others do. And as Theron mentioned, you're doing this without our money. You're doing this because you're committed to creating opportunity and creating safer communities, and those things go together. People need to understand that they're tied together. Creating opportunity is creating a safer community. You recognize it not as a law and order problem, but as a public health issue, one that demands a sophisticated and comprehensive response. You know that better than anyone else that it's a problem that we cannot arrest our way out of. We don't want to arrest our way out of. We want to make sure we're creating opportunities. Now, I don't know if you all saw it this morning. Probably not because you were here. But if you've got on demand, go back and look at it. There was a commercial that Coke Industries put on talking about how do we make sure we give young people opportunities. It was an amazing commercial. And I say that to say that this issue, what we're working on, transcends partisan boundaries, transcends ideologies. Everybody now understands, which is why we have this remarkable opportunity, how important it is to work together to address these issues. You've shown us that enforcement needs to be balanced by effective prevention, intervention, and reentry. And you've proven that our approach must involve all stakeholders, our justice system agencies, our schools, our health and mental health providers, businesses, philanthropies, and every member of a community. The only way to meet the challenge of youth violence is by mobilizing all available resources and by addressing it, not just as a crime problem, but as a social problem and as a chance to lift up our youth. And you'll notice that the phrase we use, it takes everyone. It takes everyone in this room, everyone not in this room. There is something that every one of us can do to address the problem. And that's how this administration sees this issue, not simply as a crisis to be weathered, but as an opportunity for all of us to give our youth the support they need to move our communities forward. The president launched My Brother's Keeper because he believes that every young person, not the ones born in a certain zip code, not the ones born to certain families, every single young person, no matter where they come from, what they look like, has a contribution to make. Our role, those of us in the federal government and those of us in your communities, our goal is to keep them safe and on a safe, healthy path to help them unlock their full potential. And how do we do this? You're already doing it. You know it. We do it by starting with a single premise, that violence is not inevitable. It is not inevitable. It is serious. It demands our urgent attention, but it is treatable. And we already know what the solutions are. The question is whether we're willing to make the investment. And by being here, you all have clearly said you're willing to make the investment. Now, you're really quiet. You want to demonstrate to me that you're really willing to make this continued investment? Okay. That's what I want to hear. And I'm going to make you promise me something before I leave this podium today. Then we recognize that violence is the result of a number of interrelated factors, from poverty, as I've mentioned, poor health, to substandard housing and school achievement gaps that Secretary King will talk about later. We need to look at the root causes, not just at the symptoms, the way any good medical professional would treat a disease. After diagnosing the problem, we address it with evidence-based approaches that are tailored to the circumstances and designed to promote positive development, because every child, every circumstance, every community is different. We use trauma-informed strategies to counter the effects of exposure to violence so that we have a better chance of interrupting the cycle of harm. And we do this together by taking a common path through collective action. We call this the shared framework, and it operates across all initiatives. The National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention, raise your hand if you're part of that. National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention. I want to see who's here. I want everybody to see who's here. And a lot of hands are going to go up multiple times. Community-based violence prevention program. Raise your hand. I know you're here, so raise your hand. Stop hiding. The Defending Childhood Initiative. I know you're here. I know everybody. And it's also informed our efforts to support male survivors of violence led by our Office for Victims of Crime. And I know Sharon Fletcher's here somewhere. She's leading that initiative. So Sharon, thank you very much for that work. And most of these initiatives are led by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We see it play in communities that aren't directly supported by the Justice Department as well. Thanks to the work of Mayor Nutter and Mayor Landrieu, their Cities United is using this model. The model that you guys are working on is the model that many communities are mirroring to create safer communities for themselves without federal support. Cities with intractable and seemingly unsolvable violence problems have reversed course in neighborhoods that have been overwhelmed by violence because of work of the people like you in this room. It can be done, it is being done, but it takes working together, working smartly, just like you're doing. The road is a long one, and I know that you know that progress can be slow. You'll encounter barriers, resistance, and setbacks, but don't become frustrated. Do not become discouraged, because remember, it's worth it. It's worth it because our young people are counting on us, and our communities depend on us. You're the bridge between the dark reality that too many of our kids face and the bright promise that can be their future. So if you are committed to making sure that we're going to create a bright future for all young people, before I call out Secretary King, if you're really committed to this, creating this bright future, come on, stand up and let me see you, and let me know that you're really going to do this. Good. Because like I said, I may leave on January 20th, but I'll be on your side of the table, and I'm going to be speaking loudly, and I want you guys to hear me in your head, and guys is a generic term that includes women. I want you all to hear me in your heads going, she's counting on me, she's counting on me, she's counting on me, she's expecting me to make a difference. And the next speaker is somebody who has been making a powerful difference his whole life. Under the direction of my good friend, I love saying that, John King, Secretary of the Department of Education. I still remember the first time I met him when he came in to be the Deputy Secretary in the Department of Education, and now he's the Secretary of Education. It's wonderful, and he is a passionate supporter of ours. So John has been one of the Justice Department's closest allies in reducing youth violence and expanding opportunities to our young people. Again, first as Deputy Secretary and now as Secretary of Education. He has made the full range of the department's resources available to support our collective efforts. Whenever we ask John to participate on a panel with us, his answer is always yes. I'm especially grateful for his leadership in addressing the school-to-prison pipeline and providing educational resources and services to youth in correctional facilities. He has put the Department of Education front and center in this administration's effort to support our nation's youth. So it is my pleasure to introduce Secretary John King.
Good morning. Thank you, Carol, for that warm introduction, and thank you all for being here. So appreciate the commitment of the Forum Cities to this work, to breaking down silos, as we are trying to do in the Obama administration, to focus our attention on the safety and well-being of our young people. I want to start by reminding us what brought the Forum participants together originally. The death of a young man, Darian Alpert, in Chicago. Darian, as you know, was on his way home from school at Fenger Academy High School and stumbled into a fight, a brawl between other young people and was killed. And the videotape of that event shocked the conscience of the country and led my predecessor, Secretary Duncan, and Attorney General Holder to commit to a partnership to try to get at the underlying causes, not only of Darian's death, but of violence in our communities. It caused them to say, we've got to break down the silos between justice and education and ask, how do we work collaboratively to face the challenges that confront our young people in so many communities? And that started a partnership that has existed throughout the administration, and Karol and I are privileged to be able to continue that partnership and build on that partnership. That partnership includes our grant program, our school climate transformation grants, and Project Prevent grants, which are supporting some of the forum cities in the work to break the cycle of violence. That partnership has included trying to call the country to do a much better job around correctional education, particularly for our young people who are in juvenile justice facilities, who everyone in this room understands too often do not get the quality of education to which they are entitled, don't get the special education services to which they are entitled, don't get the transitional services back to school to which they are entitled. And so we've tried together with the Department of Justice to provide guidance to communities around how to strengthen educational programs in juvenile justice. We've also partnered around grants focused on reentry, job training, and educational experiences for young people so that both while they are in JJ facilities and when they are returning to the community, they have the support necessary to succeed in school and be prepared for success later in life. We also have partnered around the development of a school climate survey tool to help educators think about how they create safe and supportive climates for their students and gather feedback from their students around the things that make them feel unsafe in the school and the community, and then respond to those challenges. But I was saying to folks as we were walking in, talking about the events even in Baltimore this weekend, despite progress, despite collaboration, despite breaking down silos, despite the hard work of everyone in this room, the challenges that we face remain substantial. Everyone in this room understands that despite all of our efforts, violence still plagues too many of our communities. This morning, there were young people all over the country who decided not to go to school today because they were scared of what would happen at school or on the way to school. This morning, all over the country, there are kids who finished the school year and now they are home for the summer with nothing to do, worried about their safety, worried about the violence in the community. Some who won't even have meals because they aren't in school, and so they will be hungry this summer. And so we respond as government should. We respond with a summer meals program, and yet we know that many of our students don't take advantage. We respond with summer jobs programs, but we know those summer jobs only meet a small portion of the need. We have so much more work to do. We just released our civil rights data collection survey data. It showed that African American students are more than 3 times as likely to be suspended in pre-K as white students. You heard that right, in pre-K. And in K through 12, it's nearly 4 times as likely to be suspended. We showed that in schools that serve African American and Latino students, less than a third offer calculus. Yet a majority of students serving much fewer African American and Latino students offer calculus. We know that schools serving large numbers of African American and Latino students, not only are they less likely to offer calculus, they're less likely to offer chemistry and algebra too. We know that there are 1.6 million young people in schools that have a school resource officer, a school safety officer, a sworn law enforcement officer, and no school counselor. 1.6 million. So we have a tremendous sense of urgency about the work ahead. We do have some new tools. The Every Student Succeeds Act, the new federal education law that the president signed in December, gives us some new tools because we believe it builds on the civil rights legacy of that law, first adopted in 1965 as the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. That law commits all states to college and career readiness for all students, not some students in some neighborhoods and some zip codes, but all students to be prepared for college and career success. That law commits states to build on the investment we've made over the last 7.5 years in preschool and expanding access to quality early learning, because we know that students who have the benefit of quality early learning are dramatically less likely to be retained in grade, more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to experience success later in life. That school commits states and districts to act when schools are struggling, to intervene meaningfully, to put in place systems like positive behavioral intervention and supports, PBIS, to act meaningfully when schools become unsafe spaces for kids, to act meaningfully when schools are not delivering on their academic promise. That law, importantly, commits resources to those efforts, but the quality of implementation of that law will depend on state and local leadership. So one thing I want to ask of all of you as you think about how to break down silos, to break the cycle of violence, to engage in those state-level conversations that will happen around implementation of the Every Student Succeeds Act. To push states and districts to think about how their strategies for school academic improvement must also be strategies for school climate improvement, school safety improvement, community safety and climate improvement. I want to ask you, as you engage in those conversations, to help schools think creatively about how we respond to the challenges young people face. How do we integrate the arts to give kids a vehicle for expression that is different from violence? How do we combat the issue of chronic absenteeism? Our civil rights data collection survey showed that 13% of our kids miss 15 or more days of school a year. And in high school, it's nearly 20% of our students who are chronically absent. Even the best teacher can't be effective with kids who aren't in class. We need schools, as they implement this new law, to think about chronic absenteeism as a predictor not only of academic failure, but often chronic absenteeism as a sign of crisis in kids' lives. We all understand that in this room, that the kids who are chronically absent are often the kids who end up dropping out, disconnected, in trouble, and engaged in or victims of violence. So as we work to implement this new law, we need everyone in this room to be a partner to their states and districts as they do that work. We also must ensure that states and districts are thoughtful as they implement the new law about how they can build support services into their school program. We need more school counselors. We need more expanded learning time opportunities for students. We know that the hours just after school, the hours on the weekend, the hours in the summer, those are the times when kids are most at risk. The President has called for significant increases in investment in student support services as part of implementation of this new law, a near doubling of the dollars that are focused on student support and enrichment services. But we've got to work hard to get Congress to the same place, that we are better off investing early in those services to support our young people than paying later through incarceration or social services. That's right. Ultimately, the conversation that we're engaged in today is a conversation about who we are as Americans, who we are as a country. Whether it's the events in Orlando, or in Sandy Hook, or in Columbine, or Baltimore this weekend, or Chicago last weekend. Right? The list is long. The question for us is, do those events reflect who we aspire to be as a country? And I say no, they don't. We aspire to be a country where kids can walk safely to and from school. We aspire to be a country where kids feel safe in the classroom and can focus on learning, not scared of what's going to happen after school or in the hallway. We want our country to be a place where people can enjoy a nightclub confident that they are safe, where people can enjoy their day out in the community knowing that they are safe, not fearing violence. There are common sense steps that we can take to take away the tools of that violence, and that those are actions we must take. There are also steps that we can take together to shift our culture, to make sure that we respond with mental health services to the challenges that we see in people's lives, that we respond with substance abuse treatment, that we respond with educational opportunities, that we create safe spaces for our young people, that we make jobs available, Secretary Duncan, my predecessor, is now in Chicago. One of the things he said about the work that he's doing in Chicago is that the gangs are the only ones hiring. Right, and so the question becomes, is that who we want to be as a country? Or do we want to be a country that delivers on the promise of equality of opportunity, that delivers on the promise of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everyone, regardless of their community? It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, to stand with a group of people who are committed to delivering on the promise of America by making our communities safer, healthier places for the sake of our young people, for the sake of our children, and for the sake of the long-term future of our economy and our democracy. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the partnership. Karol, thank you again for your leadership, and I look forward to the success of this conference. Thanks so much.
Every single year, more than 30,000 Americans have their lives cut short by guns. Suicides, domestic violence, gang shootouts, accidents. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost brothers and sisters or buried their own children.
In Philadelphia, some of our kids see more dead bodies under sheets than soldiers do in war.
We do have a serious gang problem here in the Memphis and Shelby County area.
When you live in a neighborhood that has no hope and has no future, you're desensitized and you become hopeless yourself, and then you're willing to do particular things that a person who has a different life experience would never do.
Traditionally, the way we've addressed violence is to respond to it after it occurs, by the police apprehending the criminal, or even by hospitals treating the wounds associated with violence. But what's been missing is a real effort to try to prevent it from occurring in the first place.
The National Forum comes into a community. It enlists the support of the major political leaders, usually the mayor of a city, the police commissioner, the head judges in that city, and the folks who are in charge of the Department of Public Welfare, along with the school superintendents. They develop a comprehensive plan for reducing youth violence. They discuss it with us and with their peers, mayors and other leaders in other cities across the nation who've been successful in these efforts, and they put that plan together and start implementing it.
National Forum has changed the culture to really push us more towards collaboration and partnership.
The public health approach has really changed the way people view violence, from a problem that's inevitable to one that can be addressed and prevented.
Seeing the light bulb go off in people's heads as they see, oh wow, this is being done elsewhere, let me collaborate with this group, and seeing how that all fits together has been an incredible experience for me to participate in.
These kids aren't being born into an equal playing field, and so it does take specialized initiatives like this to make sure that we're doing all we can to reach those marginalized communities. I think without the focus of our Department of Justice and the White House on this issue, we'd be gambling about the future of so many young men and women's lives.
One of the most important aspects of the National Forum on Youth Violence is that it's really engaging cities and communities where the problem exists to help find ways to solve the problem.
It is that 16 to 26-year-old population that drives the crime, but is also that segment of the population that in many ways needs the most from those of us that can provide those resources.
It's about transforming lives, and transforming lives in a way that we get people out of dangerous situations.
It brought the non-law enforcement, the private partners to the table to say that we have to be a part of this, that we cannot fix the violence in this community without everyone pitching in.
We have a partnership with the police department. We are social workers who work inside the stations to work with kids and families that the police are concerned about.
My social worker, she helped me get out of jail, got me jobs. I dropped out of the gang life that I was living before. I started going back to school, so now I'm about to finish school.
We'll go to the school, we'll develop a plan with the administration staff, and sometimes if there's other agencies on campus, we'll team up with them.
Ninth grade, it was pretty rough because, that's when all the gangs and stuff try to get at you. At first, I would say the police were kind of feared, but as I got to know the police officers, as they show us that they care about us and they actually want us to be safe, I've grown to love and have a better connection with the police officers.
The City of San Jose is a strong collaborative between elected officials, departments of the city, the county, our community residents, our faith-based organizations, our community-based organizations, schools.
It's about rescuing the children because they're the next generation. We've got to remember, strong children need to go home to strong families because strong families make strong communities.
One of the ways that the National Forum has helped us locally is to understand the importance of collecting data and evaluating that data. The other thing that it has helped us tremendously with is to focus on the holistic approach to things.
Because of the incredible partnership we have between police, schools, faith-based organizations, nonprofits, we've been able to maintain the lowest violent crime rate of any major city in the country.
The gang-related incidents in Shelby County schools when we started the program were over 1,200. This last calendar year, they were under 500. Without putting handcuffs on anybody, we bring peace to a community that has been war-torn.
For us here in San Jose, this isn't a program, this isn't an initiative, this is life and death. This is about truly saving lives.
So as you can see, it's not even possible to capture all of the work that has been happening in your communities. We've tried and we'll show these videos as we go forward, but I also hope you take a look at the National Youth Violence Prevention update that's in your packet. We did our best to kind of cull through and pull out a lot of accomplishments of the communities that are here with us today and to try to recognize it, but we still have not been able to do it justice. But it's quite moving to know that despite the real challenges your communities face, you all are doing some incredible work. And so our theme for today is It Takes Everyone. And so you heard from federal leadership and the partnership at the federal level that is working to support efforts at the local. Now I have the privilege and the pleasure to introduce to you leadership that's key at the local level, and mayors in particular were the leaders that we knew had to buy into this from day one. On the National Forum, we understood wholeheartedly that if there was going to be a comprehensive approach, it was going to be driven by leadership. And leadership starts with the mayor. And so for our first mayor to hear his perspective, and again, we did everyone a disservice. We gave no one enough time to talk about all that they do. And so right from the beginning, I know it was going to be tough when we made the ask of anybody, hey, tell us what you're doing in your city that's so wonderful and amazing. And you only got a few minutes to do it. So bear with us, but I think for this example that you saw in the video, San Jose was a city that showed a lot of communities the importance of governance. Having the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force in San Jose so well established, having now run for, I believe, some 25 years, and having leadership each time embrace it and take it to the next level. It is my privilege now to introduce to you the mayor who is coming to San Jose here, just taking office here in January of 2015, who has had a vision for the city that taken on the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force, taking it to another level, and also connecting that to My Brother's Keeper initiative. He is already come with the enthusiasm and the passion and the commitment to this work. And so I'm delighted for you all to come and hear him now as he comes up. Please welcome Sam Riccardo as he talks about some of the great work happening in the city of San Jose.
Thank you, Theron. And thank you to the entire Department of Justice team for inviting me to speak and inviting our delegation to join you. I also want to thank Secretary King for his eloquent words and for his service and leadership for our children. I am actually a former Department of Justice employee. Back in the 1990s, I was a federal prosecutor, prosecuting many felony jury trials in federal court. I can tell you it's a much better job trying to save kids than prosecute them. And yeah. It's also refreshing speaking to an audience that isn't forced to listen to you by jury summons. But these days, of course, I have a different role, and the honor is serving as mayor of San Jose, the 10th largest city in the United States, and in the heart of Silicon Valley. And we have a wonderfully diverse city. Over 40% of our adults were born in a foreign country. Over half of our public school, high school students are Latino. And we are very proud of that diversity. While some are proposing building walls, we're working on building the most successful multicultural community in the planet. As you can see from the delegation we've brought is we also have the nicest, friendliest, best-looking group of people in the country. But nonetheless, we have our share of challenges. We have a gang problem, like every big city. And a decade ago, in 2007, San Jose had the most sparsely staffed police department of any major city, with about 1,400 officers and a population of 1 million. And that was the good old days. Through budget cuts of the Great Recession and layoffs, hiring freezes, pension reform, political battles, San Jose lost over a third of its police force, over 500 police officers over the last decade. And those losses have exacted an incredible toll. Police response times have lagged. In many cases, officers cannot respond at all to calls of auto or home burglaries. The loss of officers has frightened and frustrated many of our residents. It's undermined officer morale, and it's certainly hampered our crime prevention efforts. So against this very gloomy backdrop, one might expect that San Jose has become a cauldron of crime. Except it hasn't. Not only hasn't it, but the violent crime rate actually dropped in San Jose over the last decade. Indeed, San Jose retains the lowest violent crime rate of any major American city. That's what I call the San Jose paradox. A city over 1 million people with fewer police officers per resident and declining, yet with the nation's lowest violent crime rate. How can this be, and how do we explain the San Jose paradox? I think we all know that explaining crime trends in any direction is notoriously difficult. And certainly one explanation, as I noted earlier, is that we have the nicest, friendliest people in the country, and that helps. But it seems to me that at least part of our success in mitigating violence has something to do with a model of collaboration among our police, our school districts, our county, our courts, the district attorney, nonprofit service providers, our faith-based community, city staff. This collaboration is known as the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. And like all mayors, I'm accustomed to taking credit for the good work of others, but in this case, I actually inherited this multi-sector initiative from a predecessor, Mayor Susan Hammer, who with a team of folks, including our current city manager, Norberta Duenas, launched it. And they did so to stem youth violence through a combination of prevention and intervention and suppression and reentry strategies and services. So here's the good news. The good news is that the old model is still effective, though it is still evolving. Last year, community-based organizations working under the Gang Task Force umbrella focused their services on over 3,700 youth, 80% of whom we categorize as very high risk. And we can see the immediate impact of their work through several key metrics. First, in education, of those 363 youth who were surveyed who reported not having attended school regularly in 2014, 61% came back to attend regularly in 2015. And we know that often in states like California, funding formulas depend on attendance, so we just increased revenues to our local schools by over $1.8 million. On drug use, of the 985 youth reported, self-reported using drugs in 2014, 60% stopped doing so the following year after engaging with our task force programs. Recidivism. In 2014, 73% of these youth had been reported being previously arrested. Yet after a year of engaging with service providers under the task force umbrella, only 8% of them suffered arrest. And finally, of course, and most critically, violence. Although violent crime has generally declined in San Jose since 2008, gang-related incidents and juvenile violence has declined even faster, a 66% drop between 2008 and 2015. And as we look at the various components of this model, we see ample examples of unique award-winning programs that have propelled the success of this collaborative from all of our partners. For example, our district attorney's office Parent Project engages moms and dads at the first sign of detectable trouble with their teens, helping them improve communication with their kids. The Clean Slate program finds youth seeking an escape from gang life, giving them free removal of tattoos conditioned on the youth's participation in a personal skills training and building program. Our gang task force staff teaches classes to elementary school parents to enable them to detect the first sign of their kids' gang involvement, giving parents a primer on gang attire, graffiti, and intervention strategies. Our Trauma to Triumph initiative seizes upon a young victim's first trip to the local hospital's trauma unit as a key moment of intervention for caring counselors to spur personal transformation. We launched our San Jose Works program just last year with the goal of helping kids in gang-impacted neighborhoods land their first jobs. This year we'll be employing over 1,200 teens, giving them a path to building resumes rather than rap sheets, and much more. Thank you. And much more than a summer jobs program, San Jose Works also provides job coaching and counseling along with financial literacy classes before the teens receive their first paycheck. We've seen a flurry of evidence of the rapid feminization of violence and gang crime, and studies show that teen girls respond very differently to interventions than boys do. And so we've developed a menu of female-focused gang prevention programs. And finally, whether it's through tagging or spoken word, we know there is a strong desire among all of our teens for self-expression. And through our digital arts and Youth Voices program, we're engaging kids to acquire digital and production skills to channel their emotions in constructive and often inspiring ways. Now, of course, some of these models and programs are pretty familiar to many of you in your own communities, and they may become standard practice already for many of you. And if that's the case, that's good. And if not, we're happy to share our experiences. But in either case, we're seeing best practices scale nationally as a result of our collective efforts, like today's, to collaborate. We're increasingly seeing U.S. cities employ evidence-based practices, post-traumatic care, multidisciplinary intervention teams, various public health strategies. But regardless of the modality, the secret sauce of our success in San Jose in countering teen violence requires far more than just using the best program design. As our Parks and Recreation Director, Angel Rios, often reminds me, in the great battle over the hearts of our kids, technical prowess is no substitute for the power of authentic relationships. In San Jose, we have developed a consortium of relationships characterized by passion, resiliency, and a common commitment to disrupt patterns of poverty and violence. It has required a collective admission that none of us can tackle these problems alone. Our police department gave up decades ago on arresting their way out of a gang problem. We are better together. It requires active solicitation of input from our community. It requires routine convening to foster communication across the many silos. It requires a powerful moment when a caring skillful adult manages to reach to a teenager drowning in a sea of anger, depression, fear, or addiction. That, after all, is the most critical of relationships. All of these relationships are essential. And of course, we still have plenty of challenges. Like many cities nationally, we are experiencing a worrisome spike this year in recent months in crime, violent crime, I should say. This requires us to question and take a fresh look at our current approach. And we're working with the Office of Juvenile Justice Programs to launch a system improvement project in the months ahead. We appreciate their support. We'll need the power partnership to tackle the next frontier for improving our approach to reducing youth violence. In my view, that next frontier is data. Increasingly, technology enables us to obtain real-time data from sensors connected through the Internet of Things, probing everything from energy consumption to heart rates to particulate emissions and traffic volumes. Yet no technological gizmo enables connected infrastructure to our youth. Legal and political barriers, some understandable and some bureaucratic, prevent the exchange of real-time information about a youth's arrest, a dirty drug test, his absence from class, or his first signs of depression. So we're resigned ourselves to accepting less reliable or relevant data, such as youth self-reports, or program participation rates, or subjective observations from service providers, as proxies for the real information about whether or not we're actually having impact. As a result, counselors and juvenile probation officers lack the information needed to help a teen in distress. Service providers lack the feedback they need to improve their programs or to substantiate grant applications to funders, and policymakers lack pertinent data to guide sound decision-making. Some metropolitan areas have begun to make progress on breaking down these silos to better share data across systems. And in San Jose, we're working on it. We're working to develop a shared MIS among essential partners, juvenile probation, school districts, social service providers, to share data that can bolster case management and program evaluation. But ultimately, we're going to need help from the state legislatures and perhaps even the national legislature. And we're going to need to lean on the creativity of people in this room, forging a path through all of our common obstacles in our own metropolitan areas. Which brings me back to relationships. We are collectively blessed to benefit from this circle of leadership that is widening by the year. From cities throughout the country, and within my own region of the Bay Area, for example, I'm blessed to have a visionary colleague in Mayor Libby Schaaf, from whom you're about to hear very shortly, and I'll leave you next to her capable hands. But working together, I'm confident we can get to our kids before the gangs do. And together, we can save lives and leave them a legacy of a safer future. Thank you.
I just love it when those things come together and you can see right from the get-go why mayors are so important to this work. Now, to shift gears a little bit, rather than focus solely on the national forum, we also want to talk about community-based violence prevention. And so our next mayor from Oakland, Libby Schaaf, will talk to you about some of the great work that's happening in Oakland. And again, she has been a fierce advocate and a champion. She has spoken to us before. Glad to have her back again. Please welcome Mayor Libby Schaaf.
Good morning. Let me see if this works. Where do I point it? Yay! So I was asked to talk about multi-sector approaches. And in Oakland, we just finished our comprehensive community safety plan. And like Sam, I have been the mayor for a little less than a year and a half. But that was the first thing that we did, was pull together these different sectors, including community leaders, to try and articulate what do we mean by holistic community safety. And like Sam, I also stood on the shoulders of some great work that predated me. And I just want the team from Oakland to stand up and wave, because if you have, Peter, get up, everyone, come on, Javier. The whole team. Because if you've got questions about anything that I'm talking about, you really should flag them down, okay? Let's just be clear about that. Through this comprehensive plan, we came up with 3 pillars: thriving youth and families, safe neighborhoods, and restorative city. And I don't have time to tell you all the different strategies that we committed ourselves to through this plan. I'm going to just highlight a few of them that I think are particularly good examples of multi-sector approaches. So thriving youth and families. One of the new things that Oakland has launched this year is my personal passion. It's called the Oakland Promise. And why is this so important? My 9th grade class right now, only 10% of them will have a college degree by the time they're 23 years old. And I mean a 2-year or a 4-year college degree. And in this economy, that is not acceptable. But the idea that we are not instilling the hope, the high expectations, that dream of a great future in our children from birth, I believe is part of the safety issue in our city. And so Oakland Promise is a cradle to career initiative. And I'm sorry, this busy slide, it's really a bad slide, but it's intended to show you that we are adding 4 new things to the continuum of how we meet those major milestones that we know are so important to that life course success work. But that we recognize that these 4 new initiatives are necessary but not sufficient to do what we need to do. But the idea of Oakland Promise is that we as a community can provide every child with the expectations, the resources, and the skills to succeed not just in finishing high school, but to succeed in finishing college prepared for the career of their choice. And so the first new strategy that we are going to be doing in Oakland, and I love this, it's very multi-sector, is something called My Brilliant Baby. We will be providing babies who are born into poverty with $500 college savings accounts at birth. We'll be providing their parents, 60% of whom are single mothers, with financial coaching and a direct savings account for their personal use of $500 to also help ease their financial stress and to give them a sense of agency over their financial future. And we are rolling that out in partnership with our county health department and their home visit program. So again, a multi-sector approach. We know that when a child has even less than $500 in a college savings account, they are 3 times more likely to go to college and 4 times more likely to finish college. We also know that when the first child in a family goes to college, every young person, the siblings, the nieces and nephews, they become 3 times more likely to go to college themselves. This is a life changer. But that idea of those expectations being set from birth, the idea that we are saying to families that your entire community is investing in your brilliant baby, I think sends the most powerful message ever. But we're not done. This is just the start. In kindergarten, we are going to be providing every child, regardless of income, a $100 college savings account. And it's designed so that if family and friends contribute their own money on top of that $100, it is matched by philanthropy 2 to 1. In middle schools, we'll be establishing future centers, physical resource centers, where children and families can develop college and career plans. They get their transcripts audited to make sure that they're on track for college eligibility. And they have the process of selection, application, and financing of post-secondary educational options demystified. And then finally, college scholarships and completion support. We are providing significant scholarships to our students. up to $4,000 a year every year they're in college, so that's a total of $16,000 towards college, or $2,000 a year for community college, plus a bonus if they transfer into a four-year college. But so much more important than the money. Our kids need more than financial support to finish college. We know that low-income kids that go to college, only 20% of them ever finish. And so we are providing one-on-one mentors and establishing peer support groups at the colleges so that our kids also have the social and emotional support to finish college. That is the Oakland Promise. It is big, bold, audacious, and I have raised $27 million so far for this initiative. And I want you to know only 5.5 of that is from the public sector. The rest of that has been from philanthropy, companies. They actually like things that are crazy and big like this, okay? It gets them excited. So don't be afraid. Go big or go home. That's what we're like in Oakland. So that's the Oakland Promise, very exciting, and that's part of our new initiative. And we believe that in 10 years, we will triple the number of Oakland kids who graduate from college. The second pillar of our comprehensive plan is safe neighborhoods. That's more of the law enforcement focused type of strategies, but because we are holistic, all of our law enforcement strategies are integrated with community-based organizations, with prevention and intervention. And the strategy I wanted to highlight is our Juvenile Justice Center wraparound program. We have, and again, through our generous federal grant, been able to station a coordinator in our juvenile hall. It used to be that when a child was released from juvenile hall, it would take, on average, 30 days before they were re-enrolled in school. And then the chances of them staying in school once they got back in was very small. Because through our federal grant, we're able to have a coordinator at the hall, and then we're able to have case managers that provide support to the child once they are back in school. We now have just 3 days between release from the hall and re-enrollment in school. 3 days. The retention in school has been terrific, and look at the reduction in the recidivism rate. That is phenomenal, and that just shows that getting kids right back into school and supporting them once they're there is making a tremendous difference. All right, and then our third pillar is what we call restorative city. And this is more a philosophy. This is the idea that we recognize that we have to approach everything we do with a sense of healing. Healing. You know, this is our commitment to not only restorative justice, but trauma-informed care, the recognition that children are meeting us with a long history that needs to be addressed. Ooh, I passed through it, but one of the strategies we've been doing is Peace in the Parks. It's featured a little bit in a video that you'll see later. Another one is restorative justice for Oakland youth. Restorative justice is obviously an ancient practice from Africa, from Aboriginal cultures, but we like to think it's kind of embracing in America really did start in Oakland. We now have restorative justice programs in every public school. It has literally been embraced and held up by our school leadership, and the councils and the level of leadership that the youth themselves provide in the circles is fantastic. I personally, during my first 100 days as mayor, sat in circle with 100 young people in my city. And I encourage any of you with RJ programs in your cities to suggest to your mayor that they do the same. It's a very good experience and frankly important for the young people in your city to actually feel heard by the leadership. And then another spotlight I wanted to pick up on is our school-based health clinics. Again, this is really, you know, my staff said, Mayor, why are you including this? Because the city isn't really involved with this. This is really a partnership between our school district and our county health department. We've been able to utilize state funds for mental health so that we have mental health services right in the school site. But I wanted to highlight this as a strategy because it truly is multi-sector. It's taking advantage of the county public health resources, of state funding. It's putting it right into the schools. And as the mayor of the city, I know how important this is for the well-being of my families. And that's why I personally went with the superintendent to Kaiser Permanente to ask them for a grant to support this great work. They gave us $16 million. And so I'm trying to give you ideas of when you go back to your cities and you tell your mayor, I got all these great ideas of how you can help my work. Having the mayor walk in with that type of fundraising ask, it helps. So that's another idea. All right, I want to end on this issue of My Brother's Keeper. We also had the great experience this year of developing our plan for MBK. And the thing about Oakland, if there's a best practice, we're doing it. We have every program, we have every initiative. I mean, literally, I get frustrated because people are like, oh, you're trying this? I'm like, yes, we're trying that. And yet, I certainly am not satisfied that we are moving the needle the way that we need to for our children. And so one of the things we did through the planning process with My Brother's Keeper is ask, what are some of our overarching recommendations? What is next for us? We're doing all these programs. Certainly we need to bring them to scale. We need to strengthen their fidelity. And we also came up with these 3 things. First, data. And I really cannot add to Sam Riccardo's really articulate description about why data is so important and why that is part of our next frontier. I want to also share with you, speaking of the importance of data, Oakland just completed a 2-year research project with Stanford University, Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt, on implicit or unconscious bias in policing. It is a really powerful study, and it reveals what I'm sure many of us have known for a very long time, which is that there are racially based disparate treatment by law enforcement. But the good news is we know how to fix it. There are 50 things that report recommends that our police department do, many of which we have already started on, that we believe can change that trajectory of unfair results. But it was the data that not only demonstrated it, but gave us the path for fixing it. The second is sustainable, impactful collaboration. One of the things we're doing this year in Oakland is really trying to beef up our collective impact work. We are trying to strengthen our joint powers authority that we have in our city, which is between the city, the county, and the school district, and ensure that that becomes the collective impact backbone for all of the great work that is being done to support children, because we know that when we leverage our resources together, we can do so much more. And then finally, systems change. And that is the thought I'd like to leave you with before. As leaders, it is time that we face the really hard truth that racism and inequity are baked into the systems. And I would guess that there is no one in this room that came to work in public service to perpetuate unfair systems. We all have come to government with great intentions and with beautiful visions of a just society in our minds. But we are working within systems that were designed to preserve the status quo. And that status quo has been inequitable. And so the next piece of work for us is to not just think about rooting out the racists, individuals within these systems, but it is to question the systems themselves, the unintended consequences. The unintended consequences of doing things the way we've always done them. The fact that well-intentioned people are perpetuating these unfair results. So that is the work ahead. I can tell you that we in Oakland are very, very committed to do it. Thank you so much.
So again, I want to offer thanks to Mayor Schaaf and to Mayor Riccardo. I know you all are extremely busy, but it was so important, I think, for people to hear how leadership matters. And what you all are doing both in San Jose and Oakland is fantastic. You now have examples right there of what we mean when we talk about the importance of local leadership and a number of strategies that they're pushing in their communities. Now, you have to know that when we did this agenda, we've done this plenty of times before. So don't worry about time. We have the buffers baked in. I know all of you all. I've never known us to run extremely well on time. There's always a lot to say in the conversation. You are going to have 15 minutes. Don't worry, that break is coming. I do want to point out to you, though, that I am told that there is a backdrop out in the hallway for people to take things. Again, I don't know about these things, but to take selfies, to post pictures, Instagram, use the social media. Those things are out there and available. So you'll have 15 minutes. We'll come back at 10:45 to start the next part of our program. But please give a warm round applause for our speakers, our mayors, and folks, and yourselves. We'll see you back at 10:45. Thank you. Again, let's go ahead and get started with our next conversation. Again, we heard from leadership from the administration that included, of course, the Department of Justice, Department of Education. We heard from mayors in San Jose and Oakland who are leading this work, leading change in their communities. And we were talking about several initiatives, including the National Forum and Community-Based Violence Prevention. Now we also want to spotlight, as you all know, this year, the summit is also co-hosted by the My Brother's Keeper Task Force. And the person who leads that work is Broderick Johnson from the White House. He is also the assistant to the president and the cabinet secretary. He is one of the President Obama's closest advisors on this work, and we are delighted to have him. We also have, along with Broderick Johnson, we have former mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter. And for anyone who's had the pleasure of meeting the mayor before and talking with him, you know that he too is dedicated and passionate about this work. Even since leaving office, he has continued to champion the importance of building out opportunities for all young people, particularly our boys and young men of color. But I should also say what is going to be interesting about these two gentlemen coming on stage after the video is that you will have two dads talking about this work. And I think that's pretty special to have people in leadership who, again, this is also personal for them in terms of our children and our young people and the opportunities they need to succeed. And so with that, without further ado, the next voices that you hear after this short video that lays out a little bit of some background there on My Brother's Keeper, you will hear from Broderick Johnson and you will hear from Michael Nutter having a conversation about creating opportunities for all young people, focusing on what is going on with My Brother's Keeper, and then they will open it up for questions from the audience to have a conversation with you, to hear from you about this work and get a little bit of your perspective. And so after the video, the next voices that you will hear will be Broderick Johnson and Michael Nutter. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am very proud to
present the award for Best Actor in a Leading Role in 2024.
For cinematography.
For Best Original Screenplay.
Best Director.
Your class of 2028 valedictorian.
Class of 2032 Phi Beta Kappa Initiates.
Graduating cum laude.
Your next president.
Put your hands together for our newest partner.
Journalist. Poet. James Beard Award-winning chef.
Introducing Supreme Court Justice.
Distinguished Fulbright Scholar.
2027 Nobel Prize in Medicine.
The Honorable.
Acclaimed.
World-renowned.
Award for Lifetime Achievement goes to
If we believe in their futures, they will believe in them too.
I am my
brother's keeper.
Isn't that beautiful? Good morning. There's so many like favorite images in that video for me, but the chef, the little kid with the big bowl, like, you know what, anything is possible. It really is. So it's great to be here with all of you at the 5th National Summit on Preventing Youth Violence, and to bring greetings and gratitude to all of you on behalf of the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama. Yes. And I was born and raised here in this great city, so it's personally very moving for me to be here as a representative of the President of the United States. If the President were here with us this morning, I know he would express deep and genuine pride and for the extraordinary and difficult work all of you are doing to create safe and supportive communities for our nation's children and families. But before I say anything else, I want to begin with thanking Attorney General Lynch and the Department of Justice team for their exceptional work as members of the MBK Task Force and for their leadership of the National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention. The Department of Justice has been a critical partner in all of our MBK work. Driving the agency's efforts, though, has been the great work of my good friend of several years. I won't say how many, because she would get mad at me if I did, perhaps. And fellow University of Michigan Law School alum, Karol Mason, who serves as the Assistant AG for the Office of Justice Programs. Karol brings wisdom, passion, and urgency to her work each and every day, and she has assembled an extraordinary team, including Theron, Brent, Ed Silas, and so many others who have made this gathering possible, as well as countless policy reforms that they are making to change lives. So thank you, Karol, and thank you for the entire DOJ team. Let's give them a generous round of applause. I also want to recognize all the leaders of MBK communities from across the country who are here with us today. If you lead or help lead an MBK community program in your city, please wave your hand so we can acknowledge you as well. I'm sure there are many, many, many. This is a movement, folks. Before I start our conversation with my good friend Mayor Nutter, let me tell you a little bit about MBK, where we've been and where we're going. While the cornerstone of President Obama's domestic policy agenda has been about expanding opportunity, MBK has its roots in the wake of the death of Trayvon Martin. Following that tragedy and the subsequent trial, the President spoke to the nation eloquently and shared many thoughts, including some quite personal ones, as you all will remember. And he asked, quote, "Is there more that we can do to give the young people of this nation, especially a sense that their country cares about them and values them and is willing to invest in them?" So just a few months later, in February of 2014, the President answered his own question quite resoundingly. He launched MBK from the East Room of the White House with all the formality and the pomp and circumstance that is fitting any major presidential priority. MBK is focused on 6 key milestones from birth to adulthood that research shows us are especially predictive of later success and where interventions can have the greatest impact. The 6th milestone and the purpose of this summit is reducing violence and providing second chances. The belief that all youth and young adults should be safe from violent crime, and also that individuals who are confined should receive the education, training, and treatment they need for a second chance to break the cycles of recidivism. Since launching MBK, it has been met with excitement, tremendous excitement from communities, businesses, and organizations across the country. It has drawn the nation's attention to ways in which boys and young men of color and all youth may fall behind in the opportunities that they so desperately need so they can stay on the pipeline to success instead of the pipeline from school to prison. In response to the President's call to action, nearly 250 communities in all 50 states and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico have accepted the President's MBK Community Challenge. 250 communities, folks. More than $600 million in private sector and philanthropic grants and in-kind resources have been contributed, and $1 billion in low-interest financing, all committed in alignment with the vision of NBK. We've seen new federal policy initiatives and grant programs and guidance all being implemented every day to ensure that every child has a clear pathway to success from cradle to college and career. So what does this look like in action? Well, let me give you a couple of examples of how MBK communities working with the private sector and the federal government have been working to address the many challenges. Just last week, the Department of Education announced the winners of its Second Chance Pell Pilot program, which will enroll roughly 12,000 incarcerated individuals in educational and training programs across the country. So they can pursue bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and occupational certificates. The Department of Labor also recently announced that nearly $50 million will be available in pre-release and reentry program grants. In November 2015, the Department of Justice awarded $2.2 million to expand its Smart on Justice juvenile justice initiative, which promotes juvenile justice system reforms with a focus on racial and ethnic disparities. Also in 2015, DOJ's National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice launched targeted efforts in 6 demonstration sites to help law enforcement agencies and communities strengthen trust and collaboration. You'll hear a lot more about the work of MBK communities in my conversation with Mayor Nutter and during a plenary session that will be hosted by Michael Smith of our White House team this coming Wednesday. But let me talk a little bit about a particular program that's based in Chicago, and that is Becoming a Man. BAM team is here today, so would you all stand up and we can acknowledge you? Where's the BAM team? They gave me the honor of sharing some exciting news that is being made public today. So let me just share a couple things. Researchers from the University of Chicago Crime Lab are releasing new findings from a randomized controlled trial that evaluated BAM during the 2013, 14, and 15 academic years. Now, BAM is a school-based group counseling program that helps young men learn to use social cognitive skills such as considering the perspective of others in their actions and identifying and evaluating the consequences before acting. Researchers have found that BAM reduced violent crime arrests by 50%, reduced total arrests by 35%, and improved school engagement for male Chicago public school students. Those are extraordinary accomplishments thus far. In a long-term follow-up to the Crime Lab's first study of BAM in 2009 and 2010, the researchers have also now found that BAM increased on-time high school graduation rates by almost 20%. When the president launched MBK, he was proud to have students from the BAM program stand behind him in the East Room, not only because he was moved by their triumphs, but because BAM is a powerful example of an intervention with meaningful, rigorous evidence of impact. So again, congratulations, BAM. We're thrilled to see you and so many organizations that are dedicated to investing in what works. So in the coming months, we have 200 or so days left in this incredibly consequential administration. But let me just remind everyone of something that Muhammad Ali famously said, and it's a mantra by which we live in the White House every day. We're not counting the days, but we're making every day count. So you'll see us doing, and that's driven by the president, believe me. Every day, he's like, what else can we do today to change this country and to change the world? So you'll see us doing even more to leverage this unique moment and platform and continuing to call on all sectors to do what is necessary to make a difference for all of our children. And after that, after we leave the White House, after we turn over the keys, the president has made clear to us time and time again and to the nation, he has said that he's committed to this work, the vision of MBK, for the rest of his life, not just for the rest of his presidency. Now, I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with about MBK than my friend, the former mayor of the City of Brotherly Love, Michael Nutter. So now I'm going to join Mayor Nutter here, and we're going to have a little bit of conversation. And it's great to see you again. I think there's something here I have to switch on because I can't talk that loud.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me just say a couple things about Michael Nutter. He was the 98th mayor of Philadelphia, serving from 2007 until just this past year. He is currently a professor of professional practice in urban policy at Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs. He's a previous member of the Philadelphia City Council and ward Democratic leader. While mayor, Michael was responsible for transforming the city of Philadelphia, reducing crime rates and expanding opportunity through programs like the Mayor's Office of Reintegration Services for ex-offenders, the Youth Violence Reduction Partnership, and MBK Philly. He also served as a national leader as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, co-chair of the conference's MBK Task Force, and he continues to serve in an advisory role with the My Brother's Keeper Alliance. Mayor Nutter also joined forces with Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans to create Cities United, an initiative focused on eliminating the violence in American cities that so impacts the lives of African American men and boys. Mayor Nutter, again, thank you for everything that you do, brother. So we'll get this conversation started.
Yeah.
Can I call you Michael?
That's fine.
Mayor Nutter. We've had many conversations about MBK, but I remember you saying publicly at one of the first events I did with you in Philly that MBK is one of the most important policy efforts you have led in your impressive and accomplished 30-year career. Would you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. And Mr. Secretary, thank you very, very much, Broderick. But most importantly, thank you to all of you for being here today, and certainly want to thank Karol, Mason, and Theron Pride, and Broderick Johnson. Please recognize all of them and the great work that they've done. You know, as they say, regardless of what level, leadership really starts at the top. And to have the President of the United States of America, and in particular, President Barack Obama, so directly, clearly, at times painfully, express his concerns about what's going on in the lives of young men and boys of color should inspire any of us, regardless of where we're from, what our jobs are, what we look like, where we grew up, to be involved in this work. And so, you know, when I left high school to go to the University of Pennsylvania, I wanted to become a doctor, primarily for the purpose of helping people. Chemistry 3 changed my life pretty significantly, and it was pretty clear that wasn't going to work out. But ultimately, I got this other job to lead the 5th largest city in the United States of America, 1.5 million people, and I had the opportunity every day to help people. And that's what this is really all about, and that's what the President has asked us to do. I think directed us and commanded us to do. And so the opportunity to save lives and turn lives around, rebuild communities, invest in people, and help them live to their fullest potential. As a public servant, as a citizen, it just doesn't get any better than that. So that should be the kind of work that all of us in one way, shape, or form are engaged in, and that's why this work is so important and why I thank you for what you're doing.
You know, in any MBK city I go to, and I'm sure then you had this this moment in Philadelphia many times, when I would mention to people that the President of the United States cares so deeply about them, I think in the beginning I kind of expected it to be like, yeah, sure.
Right.
But what I found instead was like, they got it. The young people would say, yeah, we believe this president cares about us, that he loves us. And go back and tell the president that we said we need better schools, get the guns out of our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And they felt like they're being heard, right? And so could you talk a little bit about that in terms of talking to young people in Philadelphia, as you said, about how this is a priority for this particular president that he means?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, when you know, if you ever have the opportunity, whether, as Broderick mentioned earlier, the announcement from the East Room, I've been to the East Room on more than a few occasions for very serious events and activities. When the U.S. Conference of Mayors meets every year in Washington, D.C., there's always a moment where the mayors, 250 or so mayors, are asked to come to the White House. We meet with the president for about an hour in the East Room. And so he takes this work very, very seriously. Whenever I've talked to the president, whether in D.C. or in Philadelphia or somewhere else, he always asks what's going on the ground, how are things going in communities, in neighborhoods, how is MBK going, and of course I first always commend Broderick and the work that he's doing. So it's real. And I think the way the president expresses himself in such a personal way, I mean, I think I almost know the president's life story just about as well as my own, and the things that he has acknowledged and the things that he did. But for various people in his life, he may have gone in a different direction. The mistakes that he has made. I don't know, and I mean, I only know two presidents, but I don't know in my lifetime that I've met someone who has been so personally expressive about his life experience than President Barack Obama. And I think that that's what makes it so real for all of us. And I've tried to, in many ways, do some of the same things. So, you know, I mean, I'm not some rags to riches life story, just, you know, kind of middle class neighborhood out in West Philadelphia. We may not have had much, but we appreciated what we had. I tried not to get in very much trouble, or at least trouble that my parents found out about. You know, but, you know, any one of us can go in a couple different directions. And I think the difference and the impact for me was, you know, I had a job from the time I was 13 years old. The only time I have not had a job is when I resigned my job in city council to run for mayor. It was pretty late in my life to be unemployed for 18 months. But I had mentors, I had supporters, I had a real neighborhood where, and this is a little bit of olden days stuff to some extent, but any neighbor on the block had permission to tell any of us as kids what to do, where to be, and all of that. And that really, for me, is about community. I, you know, learned very early on, there's, you know, time, and my mom's name is Catalina, and then there's Catalina time, right? And the time was when the street light goes out, have your butt on the steps. I mean, it's very, very clear what the expectations were. And my conversations with young people have mostly been about setting expectations, setting boundaries. They actually want some rules and regulations. They want to know the parameters. They want high expectations for them. If we set them high, they will, in many instances, do their best to meet them. If we set them low, then they'll succeed in that each and every day. So, you know, part of our job as adults is to set high expectations, be very clear with our young people. Here are your options, here are your opportunities, but also, I think, a different conversation about, but unfortunately, here are the consequences of you not paying attention and keeping your stuff together. And we have to be honest with them about what life can bring. I would ask every one of you in this room, if you have the opportunity to go to a middle school, high school, even grade school, elementary school, tell your life story. You probably weren't always successful all the time. I know we're all, you know, highly successful and we got our things together now and, you know, ain't life grand. There may have been some moments in your life where you aren't doing exactly what you should have been doing, or you faced some challenges or even failures. Share those stories with young people. They need to hear that.
Yeah, you know, again, I grew up in this city, and it all kind of began for me, and I think about my path. My mother would frequently tell the story about me as a second grader at an elementary school here in the Park Circle area, for those of you who are familiar with Baltimore. And her being called, my dad and my mom being called up by the second grade teacher to have a conference about me because I was on my way to reform school, right? This is second grade.
Second grade.
Really, yeah. Reform school was like the school to prison pipeline thing. That was a different expression for it. But so I got transferred to a Catholic school. First I was taken home and I got some Mary Louise Johnson time, right? And, and then it was like, and you know what the nuns will do, right? So, so that was the beginning, but it wasn't like those expectations then suddenly changed and everything was great. Had to face a lot of the same challenges. High school, college, law school, you know, come on, you really can't. You're gonna, and understanding, I was lucky, and the president talks about this oftentimes as well. So I think it's important to share those stories. There's no doubt about it, because as the president will say to the White House mentees many times, you guys, and they're like 17, 18, 19-year-olds, you guys are doing so much better than I was doing at your age, right? One of the things that really struck me among many when you and I first were talking about your strategies in Philadelphia was you focused on jobs, summer jobs, as a violence reduction strategy, because you had a sense of, like, within 2 weeks of school ending, what was happening if there was no choice. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
How that guided your MBK work in Philly?
As I said, you know, I was fortunate to get a job and have one consistently. The neighborhood drugstore, from the time I was 13 through the end of my freshman year in college. So, I mean, I have always had a really good sense of the importance of summer jobs and even year-round employment. But as mayor, you know, the responsibility goes up. So just a couple shout-outs. Julie Wertheimer is here from the city of Philadelphia, and you'll see some folks running around with Power Corps PHL t-shirts on. It's a program that we created to help young people get that job opportunity. And in many instances, and I would suggest you take this back to your respective cities and mayors, you know, government has a responsibility, in my view, to more oftentimes than not be on the leading edge, the cutting edge, the pushing edge, and demonstrating by leadership what you want to get done. And so I don't ask folks to do what I'm not prepared to do first. And so I set a challenge of having 10,000 summer jobs for young people in the city of Philadelphia. And of course, the first entity that needs to step up is the city of Philadelphia. And so all across the government, virtually every department and agency had to participate, and we put money behind it. It's one thing to have a goal, it's another thing, you have to fund these things, you have to pay for these things. And then personally on the phone with CEOs and chairs of boards, you know, give me 5 jobs, give me 10 jobs, give me 25 jobs, whatever the case may be. And also acknowledging that many companies won't necessarily participate in your summer jobs program, ours is Work Ready Philadelphia, but have their own. Well, those are summer jobs as well. And so we did meet our summer jobs challenge for my last summer, 2015, 10,826 jobs for young people in the city of Philadelphia. It is a violence reduction strategy because it's keeping young people out of harm's way or from being either a perpetrator or a victim. And some weeks in Philly, you can be both. It's just kind of the way it goes. But it's also putting money in that young person's pocket. And let's be very, very clear. Many are probably not putting that money in their 401k. You know, they're going to spend it. And so actually that money is being recirculated throughout the community. But I think the most important aspect of it all, and I'm still carrying around a business card from a young guy who was in the Cristo Rey School in Philadelphia, subsequently graduated, but many of the young people had business cards, and I committed to having 4 of their students in the mayor's office every year for all of my time. On the back of his card, he's listed the different jobs that he had in the city of Philadelphia as a part of his calling card to let people know, I've been working, I've been doing things, I'm developing a resume, and that's what this is really all about. Many of our young people don't necessarily have some guidance or mentorship or even examples of folks who are going to work each and every day. And what I say to the young people is, you know, when you have this job, you actually have to come every day. Not every other day, not when you feel like it, The job starts at 9. I'd like you to be here at 8:55. It's over at 5. You should stay to 5:15. And you can't curse out every person that you have an encounter with that you're having a bad day about. Well, you have to learn these things.
That's right.
We learn these things. They have to learn these things. And so that's why we did what we did with the Summer Jobs Program. And my successor has set an even larger goal for the next few years going forward. Youth violence went down during those summers in the city of Philadelphia because young people had an alternative, a positive alternative for them.
Yeah, I want to commend you. You mentioned your successor. I want to commend you and your team for the work that you did in working with your successor and your successor's team and making sure that MBK Philadelphia continued on course. And one of the things we worry about, quite frankly, is what happens when a strong mayor who believes in MBK leaves office and the successor may not have the same priorities or might see that as, well, that was one of his things. You took a very, very determined approach about that. I remember that. And you want to talk about that a little bit because there's a lesson, some lessons to learn from that.
You know, I think first of all, you win an election, you have your priorities, the things you ran on, et cetera, et cetera. I think men and boys of color dead in the street has to be everybody's priority, regardless of what election or who you are or where you came from. I mean, it's just, you can do it the way we did it, you can do it your own way, you can put your thumbprint on it, whatever the case may be. That's your prerogative, you won. When MBK came along, and again, just from a pure timing standpoint, the president announces it in 2014. I'm going out of office in January of 16, so I've got a pretty short runway to kind of pull it all together. We had a great team. We did all 6 milestones, and fortunately we had people who were already in leadership positions for the 6 milestones, which is why we did the 6. Kicked out our plan pretty early on with one very strategic decision. Knowing that I was going out of office, not knowing who the next mayor was going to be, my name is not on the cover of the MBK Philadelphia plan. My name is mentioned once in a photo with a young boy, and I think there are 2 photos. My name is only mentioned once in that entire report. It's not my plan. It is MBK Philadelphia's plan. So, I mean, especially on the political side, I mean, there are moments, there are issues. We can't allow ego to get in the way of results. I didn't invent trash pickup, snow removal, or water flowing through pipes. But the city was doing that before I showed up, while I was there, and I can assure you it's happening right now. Monday is trash day in the section of the city I live in. I have a 100% assumption, even out of office, that my trash is getting picked up today. And so you have to infuse these programs and issues and ideas into the lifeblood of the city, that it becomes a standard operating procedure. It's just what we do.
That's right.
It's just what we do.
I have to tell you, one of the so many proud moments around MBK thus far, and the president expresses this so often. One of those moments, of course, though, was I remember I went and gave him an update on MBK Philadelphia, and it laid out all the data that you were looking at and how you were starting to measure results. It also had a almost $90 million figure associated with it in terms of new investments that you had been able to articulate. Why was that so important to have that in your documents?
Well, you know, I've always taken the position that budgets are more than numbers and words on a sheet of paper. Budgets actually reflect your priorities and your commitment. It's one thing to be, you know, everybody knows the whole ham and eggs analogy, and, you know, the chicken's enthusiastic, the hog is fully committed. So if you're really committed to something and it has a cost to it, then you have to identify the cost and then identify the resources. And so, again, fortunately for us, and the way we did this was there were a number of programs and initiatives, some of which were already in place, that lined up very well with one or more of the various milestones. And so we pulled those dollars together and said, this is what we're allocating, dedicating, focusing our commitment to MBK, and here are the resources to do it. And I think at the same time, for all of these programs, I'll go back to the announcement that you made, which is really critically important and will eventually demonstrate the brilliance of MBK, which is about data. And so you heard Broderick, the Secretary, talk about Becoming a Man, BAM program in Chicago, and there's some folks from the crime labs and the University of Chicago here. We have to not only implement great programs, but then scale up fully those that are working. So putting resources behind the BAM program and what Mayor Emanuel is doing with an additional and doubling down $4 million of Title I money to support that program. Some of you may be in cities where you have a lot of different programs that are doing a lot of different things. At some point in time, you really have to evaluate these programs. And I know Joe has been around for a long time, and Joe's organization has always received funding, but you really have to do what Rosanna Ander and her team out in the University of Chicago are doing, which is have an evaluation of the program. Joe may be a great person, but the program is really not doing what needs to be done. And you might have to hurt Joe's feelings.
That's right.
Joe might not be able to get that funding. And so when the economic crisis hit for us in 8, 9, and 10, we brought all of those folks together. And we started going through an evaluation process. And you have to put evaluation in the documents for your various programs that you're going to pay money for. This is about outcomes, not about nostalgia.
That's right. That's right.
This is about outcomes, not nostalgia. That's and right. Just because you've been getting funded for the last 10, 15, 20 years doesn't necessarily mean that you should continue getting funded going into the future when your program is not showing the kinds of results that we're seeing from a program like Becoming a Man, 45% reductions, 50% reductions in criminal activity or being engaged with the system. That's real. And now we have to figure out, how do you take it up that it's not just serving a couple thousand young people, but tens of thousands all across the cities of America? We actually can solve these problems. It's about political will, and it's about money, and it's about focus. All three of those we can actually do if we decide that that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and look, you just crystallized what is right at the core of the president's vision in creating MBK the way he did, and that is there's a lot of good intentions out there. There's a lot of money spent. There are a lot of folks who can tell wonderful anecdotes about a child's life being changed, and those are important. Mm-hmm. But we have a responsibility and an opportunity to measure things as rigorously as anything else gets measured. Mm-hmm. And that is a fundamental difference in how people are looking at the work around these issues. Yeah. And it will live on.
And I think if you can show that data and show that evidence, then those programs will attract even more funding, which is, I would say the second wave, if you will, of what MBK is all about, and the foundation community and the corporate community and many, many others. But I mean, they're going to invest in what's working. And so, that's why MBK and Cities United and these kinds of projects and programs are so critically important. So I just ask you, please, evaluate, reevaluate, and then insist on rigorous trials and evaluation programs as a part of what you're doing. None of us have any money to waste, but I think more importantly, we have no lives to waste. Exactly. And children are dying because of what's going on in our streets every day. That's our job and responsibility.
That's right. I think we have just a couple minutes perhaps to take some questions from the audience. I think we can just take 2 questions. So somebody just affirm that. With the lights, I can't
only because I have to catch a plane.
Only because of that.
I would love to stay here.
Are there any, here's one right here.
Shot one out.
Right there. Okay. Would you stand up, please?
Can't see you.
Yeah, because we have these lights that are kind of blinding us here.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. It looks like a microphone coming. Okay.
Mark Rivers from Seattle, supervisor with the Street Outreach Team. for the YMCA. My question to you is great job on that summer program. What did you guys do as far as preparing those young men and women to be prepared to go and deal with those issues on the job? How to communicate their issues, how to show up the next day and still produce. What did you guys do?
I got it. So our main partner in this work is an organization, it's a nonprofit organization back home called Work Ready Philadelphia. They're our primary partner. They work with the young people, they screen the young people, they go through a process before that young person ever shows up at the workplace. Second, within reason, they try to get a sense of, what's your interest. And so, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have someone do an internship, for instance, in a hospital, and they're afraid of blood. I mean, it's like, that makes no sense, right? So we find something else for you. So, and it won't be a perfect match, but I mean, you just want to do something that's common sense. But even before that, so I would usually make my summer jobs program announcement or challenge usually somewhere in the November, December timeframe, right? So, I mean, it's starting to get cold in Philly, and we're talking about the summer, but you need a lot of runtime for that. And I would talk about it a great deal myself and my team at every, virtually every high school appearance we ever made. And so part of it is just getting people used to the idea. I know it's November, December. You need to be thinking about what you're doing this summer, talking to their parents. What are you doing this summer? Can't just be hanging out. I think keeping young people busy and active and engaged in caring, nurturing environments will make a tremendous difference. But there's a lot of prep work that goes with that, and because everybody's not ready.
There's time for one more quick question.
I had to steal the mic because Theron would shut me down, but I know that several people asked
Where
me
are
this
you,
question.
Carol? Is that Carol? I recognize the voice, but
right, I know the voice.
But it's a question that I know that some of you asked me, and I said to ask Mayor Nutter.
Yes.
And so this way, everybody gets to hear the answer. How did you deal with, I know you all tackled the data sharing issue to make sure that you had people communicating with the schools and law enforcement. Can you tell people how you did that?
Sure, quickly. Data sharing, always a challenge, with every respect to including Karol and Broderick are wonderful attorneys in their own right. You have these ideas, you want to share data, and then there are 19 different laws that really kind of get in the way of the data sharing. But if you stay on it and stay focused and folks understand what it is that you're trying to communicate and trying to share and have an intergovernmental agreement on that data sharing, you can get through it. It will take some time. Don't give up. The one thing that government has beyond anything else is tons and tons of data. We collect more stuff than we know actually what to do with. And worse, sometimes in our analysis, we're not even analyzing the right thing. But that data is there, and it really does need to be shared, which will help in the whole evaluation process. A lot of trust involved in this, and people get nervous, and your attorneys doing their job will always do their best to protect you. The flip side of that, and the meetings I had, because I couldn't go to a lot of those meetings because my head would explode, was do not forget what the goal is here, what the purpose is of this data, and let's not trip over ourselves to protect ourselves in such a way that we can't actually do our jobs.
That's right. Well, thank you very much,
but
Mayor
she stole the
Nutter.
mic. She has power. You had one more. Here.
Oh, that was a 2.5. I mean, that was a taking.
And I forgive her for BMA. We love what you're doing, but how does that align with Black Male Achievement Initiative? And because it's so close together, and specifically to get some of the money.
Yeah.
And how do we not leave our girls behind? Can we do something for sisters? And keep the faith base engaged.
So a couple of things very quickly on that. So in Philadelphia, during my time, we had both the person directing MBK activities and black male engagement. They are positions in the government. In the current city administration, as I best understand it, there is one young person, Jack Drummond, who was in charge of both. Again, that's a prerogative of any administration. In one of our MBK gatherings in Philadelphia, we did seek to address, and we in no way, shape, or form mean to leave our young women out, young women of color, out of the conversation, the equation. I think the issue here is when you looked at the data, it was very, very clear that the disparities and the need with young men and boys of color was so way off the charts that two things. One, helping that constituency actually has a benefit with young women, but in no way, shape, or form are they mutually exclusive and should certainly be included and have their own standing in their own right. But the data was telling us that we had to at least first try to focus on young men and boys of color. When you look at all of the stats, from violence to shootings to homicides, black men and young men and boys of color are so way off the charts compared to any other cohort that in at least the government world, I mean, you do have to make some decisions about where you're going to start. That doesn't mean that's the be-all and end-all. It doesn't mean you're going to start there and stop there, but you do have to start somewhere, and the rates of death in shootings for young men and boys of color are beyond anything else that's going on in cities across America, but certainly no disrespect, and our young women need help and support as well, and I've been involved with the Council on Women and Girls out of the White House, which Valerie Jarrett and a number of others, and the Women's Conference that just took place, I believe, last week, is critical to this country, but something directly and clearly has to be done for these young men and boys of color.
Mr. Mayor, I know you've got a flight to catch.
I do.
All right.
Thank you. I'm
so
sorry.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, man. Thank you. See you.
Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks. Broderick Johnson and Michael Nutter. Again, I had made a deal that he would not miss his flight, so I'm very nervous now. So it's going to be someone that shows up at my home if he does not catch that flight. But thank you all. I knew that it would be a powerful conversation to have them talk a little bit about the work that the President cares so much about. Now we move to a portion of our agenda where we're going to hear from some really key speakers that rounds out what we talk about today in terms of our theme being it takes everyone. And again, we've talked about the federal leadership. We've talked about at the agency levels all the way up to the White House. And of course, we've talked about how important our mayors are. We've heard their perspective. Now I'm very excited for you to hear from a commissioner for the Boston Police Department who, when I met him, Commissioner Evans just talked about relationships. He knew firsthand that it was not about his officers solely making arrests. He knew they had tools in their toolkit that would allow them to hold people accountable, and it was always the enforcement. But he also talked about relationships and thinking about how they work with young people and build those relationships with young people in and out of school. Was struck by his passion and his commitment for this work and his own personal story. And so I'm so delighted now to welcome to the stage, please join me in welcoming him, Commissioner William Evans.
Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank, obviously everyone for inviting me here, especially, the National Forum. Again, I'm the Commissioner of the Boston Police Department. I've been on the Boston Police Department for my 36th year right now. I've come up through the ranks, and, I'm very lucky to lead the department. And with me is a great team. I won't acknowledge them all, but when San Jose Mayor talked about how great his team was, my team is a lot better, so. And better looking, by the way. But honestly, we all got challenges in our job, and I'm here to talk about some of the programs we have, and it's all about violence. That's what keeps me awake, and that's what myself and the mayor are continually focused on. Every morning at 7 a.m. we talk. It's a daily call about what happened the day before, and that's our main focus. And there's a lot of challenge in our job, but I think we have some great programs, and I think nobody does it better than us as far as community policing goes. Again, I've been the commissioner for almost 3 years. and we work hard, you know. I like to say our philosophy is built on the way I was brought up. You know, I was brought up as an inner city kid. You know, I never knew my mom. I had 5 older brothers. My mom died when I was just an infant. I had a brother die when I was 9, and my father passed away when I was 14. So my brothers brought me up, and when Mayor Nutter talks about people stepping up and helping you, that's what I had. You know, I had one of those summer jobs that kids so desperately need now. I went around picking up papers with that stabber, whatever that thing's called. But it got me through the summer. You know, I was in day camps, you know, and I know we work very closely with the YMCA here and the Boys and Girls Clubs. I was in the camp, so I seen firsthand what those opportunities can do. In growing up, I always remember I had one great opportunity was when my father passed away, a local Catholic priest came to my brothers, and they said they were worried about William. And he got me into a Catholic school, and that made all the difference in the world. And I got a great high school education, and I always say I didn't have the money to go to that school, and I still think I didn't have the brains to get into that school, but what I'm saying to you is someone stepped into my life, that priest, and he gave me an opportunity that I never would have had. And my philosophy in dealing with the inner city kids is I'm one of them. Every kid needs the opportunity I had. There's no such thing as a bad kid out there. There's just a kid in need of a chance that I got. And that's what... You know, I remember, you know, sleeping in a bed with 2 of my brothers on the second floor of a triple-decker. We had nothing. My chief, who's second in command, was brought up by just his mom. He had nothing. So I think we get how important it is to work with these kids. And we talk about that. When I go to my academy classes in the new offices, we talk about how our role isn't locking kids up anymore. When I came on this job, you know, 33 years ago as a patrolman, I was a cadet for 2 years before that, I talked to the officers about, if you come on this job thinking that our job is arresting kids, then you're in the wrong job. Our job is about giving kids opportunities. And when I came on this job, I gotta be honest with you, we thought officers were great by the number of arrests they get. Now we measure our officers on the amount of great community work they do. You know, we don't have quotas on how many arrests. We don't have quotas on how many moving violations or how many tickets you get. Our main priority is how well we work with the community. And I think you'll see that with a lot of the programs. You know, we have a program called Youth Connect. I think it was highlighted in the film, where we have social workers working in 5 of our district stations. We have them working with our school police, and we have them working with our gang unit. And if you told me 32 years ago when I came on this job that we would be working in our district stations with social workers, I'd say you're crazy. But they're an important part of our strategy. Now our officers, instead of, you know, putting a kid into the criminal justice system, are turning those kids over to our social workers, and they're getting them the services they need. My only problem is there's such a great need now that we're really pushing the funding to make sure we can get them in all 11 of our districts, because we see what a great, valuable resource they've been. So it's all about diversion. You know, Mayor Nutter talked about jobs. Our mayor has already gotten about 10,500 jobs this summer, and that's an important part of our summer strategy. We also work very hard with a lot of our agencies. Like I said, the YMCA is an important part. They give out free summer camps to the kids. Anyone can go anytime to the camps. The Boys and Girls Clubs. You know, that's all really important to our strategy. And when I look at our numbers, you know, last year, we reduced crime by 9% overall. We had a 20-year low in our homicides. We had 38 last year, which again is 38 too many, but for a major, large city, it was a 20-year low. We're doing the same this year, but as me and the mayor go around, the statistic that we're most proud of is last year we locked up 16% less kids, and this year already we've locked up 11%. So we're bringing down our crime, we're bringing down our homicides, and we're continually bringing down our arrests. So it's showing that you don't have to be locking kids up to achieve your goals, and I think that is what we're doing. You know, we're constantly engaged in youth police dialogues, not only with minority communities, but also with Somalian communities, all the communities in the city, and that's been very, very helpful. We're continually out there doing peace walks. We did 55 of them last year, where we walk around the neighborhoods and meet people. Already this year we've done 12. I'm doing one tonight at 6 p.m. with the mayor, where we're out constantly engaged in the community. It's real important. We do movie nights out in the parks. We do, you know, as crazy it is, you know, we have our own ice cream truck. And I always get chuckles out of that. But, you know, if you told me 32 years ago again that officers would be riding around in ice cream trucks giving out ice cream and really enjoy it, I'd say you're crazy. But that's what we do. You know, when I came commissioner, we increased the amount of officers that are in the schools. They're constantly dealing with kids in building respect. You know, we have a program called Operation Homefront, that if a kid's showing any signs of problems at home, any type of gang involvement, our school police officers go with the clergy to their home. So, you know, we're continually working at ways to build respect with the community. And it's gone a long way, it really has. And you know, we're, I think, on the forefront here of what it is to be a community. You know, we're not into that military style of policing. My union is always sort of looking for us to go to patrol rifles. You know, I don't like the look of patrol rifles. They want us to go to tasers. I don't like tasers. I'm a firm believer that dialogue is the best way to deal with people, and that's our philosophy. That's the way me and the chief direct the department. And if it goes from the leadership on down, the troops get it. And that's why they're out playing basketball with these kids. They're out there, you know, in cooking classes. They're doing all kinds of great community work. And I think, honestly, you know, I think we got a lot of respect and trust. Policing's not an easy job now. You know, we're all troubled what happens in Ferguson. We're all troubled what happens in New York. Our job gets tougher when those incidents happen, but it only makes us want to work harder and harder. And I think our officers do a great job. And so, you know, I just am real proud of the way our department works. And we have some real great programs. And I know the mayor's a big supporter of My Brother's Keeper. But, you know, it's all about getting these kids opportunities. It's all about getting them the services and not locking them up. And so, you know, I just want to thank the forum for having me here. I think we do a great job. And like I say, honestly, I go to bed every night with the hope that I don't get that phone call. You know, nothing bothers me more than a young kid getting shot on the streets of our city. You know, the next 2 months are usually our busiest with the summer coming, but we're going to dig our heels in, and we're going to make sure the city of Boston has the best summer it can possibly have. But it doesn't happen with the police. It happens with everybody in this room. It happens with, you know, the clergy, nonprofits that are out there. We're all in this together, and our main goal is to make sure no one's shot on our streets of the city of Boston. So I just want to thank you all for having me here, and I just appreciate the DOJ, the National Forum, for all the support they've given us over the years. You know, when you talk about it ending, I hope it's just beginning. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Please welcome to the stage, from our host city of Baltimore, Maryland, Ms. Kelsey Johnson.
My name is Kelsey Johnson, and I am from Baltimore City. I don't know if anybody came up here yet and welcomed you to Baltimore. So I would like to take this time, if you could stand up and clap your hands, I would like to welcome you to Baltimore. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you here. When you do take your lunch break, make sure you get a crab cake. Go get a Elbe seasoning. I do appreciate you being here. I'm the chair of the Baltimore City Youth Commission here in Baltimore City. I have a lot of other titles as well, but you don't even know about that. So please be interactive with me. Please laugh if you feel need to. Clap if you need to. It may get a little heavy in the beginning, but it will get lighter. And again, thank you. I appreciate this honor and privilege to be here today. Okay. So Baltimore, it's a very special place. Maybe I'm a little biased because I grew up here my whole life, West Baltimore, a little funny place to be. You have a lot of different people here, a lot of different attitudes and characteristics that make Baltimore so special. And just this past year, we've had a lot of transitioning happening and really growing the level of youth involvement. And I think we're really in the right direction. So a little over a year ago, we had the Baltimore uprising. We were watched all over the nation with the Freddie Gray incidents, the riots or uprising, whatever word you like better, and then 344 homicides. How can you, as a young person, feel like your life matters at all if everyone is dying beside you? How can you possibly feel like there's any hope that you'll live to even 18, possibly 20, maybe 24, if it's a friend, a neighbor, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, every single day? And I think we're getting better at really addressing this. And so I'm gonna take you to a little bit about me and how I really managed and really got myself a little healing on the process. So this quote, it specifically helped me come to realize that my life has purpose. It may have been a few years ago. I was fairly numb to a lot of things that was going on. I had grew up in West Baltimore with a single mother. I didn't know we were low income until I got a little older, so I didn't know people just had candlelight dinners because the lights was out. For like weeks at a time, I thought that was a normal thing, I thought it was a little classy, we was just, being fancy. I didn't know that just hand-me-downs passed through sisters, and sisters was just not normal. I thought it was fine. I like my sister clothes. They dress pretty well. So I didn't realize my life situation until I grew up. It wasn't until high school that I directly encountered violence in my life. Not only was my mom a single parent, my father was incarcerated for being a drug dealer. But then my senior year in high school, right before I graduated, I was raped. And that time, I didn't really want to tell anybody about it, mainly because generation after my mom was molested, my grandmother was raped, and then that great-grandmother. So I felt like a generational curse, and I was like, I don't want to tell anybody because I feel like I'm passing it on if I say it. So for about a 3-4 year span, I said nothing. I was completely numb to everything and everybody. I didn't care. Whatever you had to say, it didn't matter. If somebody died, okay. But it wasn't until my mother pulled it out of me and was like, well, what is wrong with you? What happened? What am I missing? how can this get better? I don't know why you're angry. I don't know why you're upset. I had to go to therapy, and that's even still constantly going as a healing process for me. I came up with an initiative where I grew up in the technology phase. I know what a hashtag is. Hashtag wear words. So I'm giving you this for free. You can have this, you can take this back to your cities. It's fine. It's very inexpensive to do, and it's really useful. Some therapists from Johns Hopkins is actually adopting this. So I thought that was an honor and a privilege for them to even tell me that. But wear words really is writing an issue or something that you struggle with on your face. So you can really just use an eyeliner, because hopefully you take it off. Just an eyeliner, write it on your face. You need a mirror to look in the mirror and look at what that issue is, and some soap and water possibly to clean your face. And really look at yourself to say, I'm better than this. This won't stop me, and I have more to grow. And I did this just for myself. And for me, I took a picture only so I could remember it and post it on social media. It went crazy. And I really didn't expect it to do that. Then I got asked to do this presentation in several schools. And then I'm seeing that these young girls are going through the same issues that I went through, and how me just saying it is helping them release some things. The top two pictures are me. So rape is on my forehead, anger is on my cheek, and on the other side is doubt. The bottom left is me at one of the schools in Baltimore, the Seed School. And what was special about me doing this presentation, this young girl, she was actually about to cry. My mom showed up. So this was her first time ever coming to see me speak publicly. It was a really big deal. I called her out. She sat in the back, and she was like, I want to participate in this too. And she wrote something different on her words, but it was another young girl with the exact same name, and she didn't know it. She didn't know it at all. She didn't know her name. My mom's name is Chelsea, and that this other young girl name was Chelsea. She wrote on her arm, suicide and anger. She didn't want to put on her face, and then my mother was like, I want to take a picture with her, but right on my forehead, set free. So my mother then began to explain to me afterwards, I wanted to kill myself several times growing up. So this even telling her, well, this young girl, her name is Chelsea too. Do you understand how you can pour into her and really change her life? Then that's really when I knew, like, okay, I really need to really put some fire behind my tail, and I can really change some lives. But before I wasn't there. I wasn't, no way, I'm little old Kelsey, don't nobody care. But then it really started to resonate. Just in this past year, Baltimore has really moved to get youth involved in as much city decisions, leadership as much as possible. So from Wear Words, we went to Their Voices Matter. That was the Baltimore City Youth Commission, Safe Alternative for Education, the Tipper Foundation, and Brighter Stronger Foundation, all great organizations, community organizations by young leaders across Baltimore. We came together to do a service initiative right after the April uprising. So we went into schools and really just talked to the young people about how do they feel about what's going on, and how does that make them feel? And the outpour was tremendous. We went to 5 places, had to do report on it and everything, but constantly seeing, once they get the opportunity to express how they feel, it's just on from there. Baltimore now has a police youth advisory board that we brung helped bring on from the Baltimore City Youth Commission. We now have a Be More Youth Collaborative, Safe Streets Youth Advisory Board. We increased the number of youth block parties that we have in the city. Last year we increased it to 20, and this year we're now at 20. Just giving more opportunities for young people around the city. And so I really just put this picture up just to prove that it takes everybody. It's not just me, it's the members of the commission, it's the members in the community, it's leaders and young people all around the city. It's everybody that's put in stake and working as hard as they can to change the lives in Baltimore. We can stop killing each other. It is possible. I had a conversation not too long ago, and the conversation it made me stuck, where one person said, I don't want to mentor a child in Baltimore because I fear if I love them, they'll be taken by a bullet. And I can't necessarily say how I can handle it, and I won't retaliate. And I didn't have an answer for that until now. But what if you save someone's life? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Memphis, Tennessee, please welcome Mr. Wanye Smith.
Morning, everyone. Before I start, I just need a little crowd participation. Just need you all to repeat after me. You know, you don't have to, you don't want to, but I would like for you all to. I want you to point to yourself and say, I am somebody. And it takes everyone to make a difference. I am somebody. Okay, so as you all know, my name is Wanye Smith. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a junior at the Tennessee State University in Nashville. And I'm grateful for the chance to tell everyone about what it takes for someone to be successful or someone to reach the goals that they have set, because it does take everyone. And specifically in my PowerPoint presentation today, I'm going to talk about how it took my teachers, my family, and my friends to get me to where I am today. Before I start again, I want to thank the Memphis-Shelby County delegation for even having me to come up here and to get a chance to tell my story and everything. So, that was me. That was me at 9 months with a big head. So, but growing up, well, from that point right there, my mother told me that it was already said that I wasn't going to be anything or I wasn't going to do anything in life. Just from that picture right there, I see the future right there. To me, that's the future right there. I got a big smile on my face, so you can tell that I was a happy child. And that's a point that I want to make. Children are genuinely happy. They're taught anger, they're taught hate, they're taught violence. They start off happy. This is where I grew up, Memphis, Tennessee. As you can see, it's generally red, and the red is like for the most crime. So I endured I witnessed a lot of crime in my city, from elementary school, middle school, all the way up to high school. And I thought to myself, my 8th grade year, after I almost experienced, a close call to death, because I wasn't gang related, but I hung with the gang people. So it was kind of like I was affiliated, basically. So after almost getting killed at a shootout after a party, I decided that, I got to change, I got to make a difference. I got to make sure my brother and people after me don't end up going through the same thing that I almost went through. These are the statistics that were said to me, or that were brought to me my 8th grade year before I made that change. This also helped. They said I wasn't going to graduate, that I'll be in jail before I finish high school. If I finish high school, I wasn't going to go to college. I was not going to be successful whatsoever. It takes a village to raise a child, and you all are a part of that village. I'm a part of that village, even though I'm still young. So I have to make sure I'm doing what it takes to help people after me and the children after me. It takes the teachers. This is my high school, Fraser High School in Fraser, which is the north part of Memphis, one of the toughest high schools in Memphis. This school has so much negative publicity on it that you would not want to send your kids there whatsoever. They closed it down. They turned it into an ASD school. The government took it over. That's how bad the school perceived to be. This is my 9th grade year, my first year at Fraser High School, and the lady standing beside me is Miss Ashley Jackson. She was my leadership coach at Fraser High School, and that was the first person I encountered that helped me make that change over to being a leader in my community and in my household and just in the school. She helped me get through a lot of things through high school. She kept me away from the gangs, kept me away from the bad kids or whatever you want to call it, but this was my graduation day. She was with me every step of the way. As you can see, she was about to cry in this picture because she couldn't believe that this little 9th grader became a 12th grader so quick and so fast, and I developed so fast because of her. She helped me get to where I am today. And that's another thing that I want to really hit on. It takes the teachers. We're with those teachers 8 hours out of a day, 5 days a week, 180 days out of the school year. So we're around them a lot. What they do can really influence us and really change us. So teachers are very important. Freshman year of college, she was still with me, still holding my hand, still telling me everything is going to be okay. My sophomore year, she was still with me, telling me it's okay. I didn't have the funds that I needed to get to school before I got there, but through dedication and hard work, she helped me. She continued to push me forward, and I love her for that. It takes family. Family is one of the key factors of developing a child's mind. These are the people we're with every day out of the year, 365 days. This is my nephew. He is 1 year and 8 months. My sister had him in October, and I didn't get to see him because I was still in school at Tennessee State. So when I got home, I finally got to hold him, and I told my sister, even though this is your child, this is my son. She didn't quite understand where I was going with it, but I told her because she didn't quite understand what I was saying. Then I had to explain to her that she's not with the father, so I know what it's like to grow up without a father. So I wanted to make sure I was that father figure for him. So that's the reason why I said what I said. So I just look after him, try to teach him right from wrong while he's still young. That way, when he grows up, he'll have, someone to look up to, someone to model after, because if no one's there for him, he's gonna fall. He's going to fall by the wayside, and he's going to be a part of those statistics that I showed you earlier. And that's what I don't want to happen. So he continues to be the motivation for me to do whatever it is I need to do to make sure children like him don't end up how I've seen children end up. It's just me and him. I called myself teaching him how to drive that day, even though his steering wheel. His mama said I was moving too fast, but I was like, he got to learn one day, so. This is my baby brother. He's only 1 year under me, but like I said, he grew up without his father as well, so he instantly looked up to me because I was the only male that was, in his life. So he is currently a junior at what used to be Fraser High School, but what is now Martin Luther King Preparatory Academy. So he's one of those key people that keeps me motivated. He just called me right before I came up here. He was like, good luck. I look up to you, and for Father's Day, he almost made me cry. He told me Happy Father's Day because I was always there for him. I got him everything he needed. everything he wanted. I made sure he didn't want for nothing. I would give my last for my younger brother. I have 10 siblings, but that is the closest one to me. So he really just helped me stay focused in school. When I thought about giving up, I was like, I can't because I got to make sure he gets to where I am. It takes friends. So my freshman year of college, Nashville is only 2 hours or so away from Memphis, so I didn't really have too many people to come along with me because the graduation rate for my school wasn't so high. So I had to make new friends. Luckily, I found other people from Memphis that went to other schools. This is Moesha Overstreet. She is a dance team. She's a member of my dance team that I started once I got to Tennessee State University to bring people together so they could have activities to do other than, finding bad things to do. But she was a victim to some stuff that was bad, basically. I don't want to say exactly what it was, but she came to me my freshman year. She opened up to me, and I told her, I help you get through anything or everything, and I barely even knew her. I just knew we were from the same city and we knew the same people. But yeah, she opened up to me, and I told her I'd help her get along the way, and ever since then, we're best friends to this day. And whenever she has a problem, she'll come to me. Whenever I have a problem, I come to her. And she influenced me to get into programs where I can help other children that go through the same thing she went through. These are just pictures of us. This was actually a Christmas party. We dressed alike, but it wasn't on purpose, so I thought, great minds think alike. We just so happened to dress alike, but it also takes you as in you out there, and me as well. So these are the things that I jotted down earlier, because I asked myself, what am I doing? Am I doing what I need to do to make sure the people after me, or even the people that look up to me that are older than me, are doing what they're supposed to do to make sure our youth continues to progress well? This is one of the camps that I do every year since my 9th grade year, so it's my 6th year. My freshman year, I was a participant, but since then, I've gone back as a staff member. It's called the Tennessee Teen Institute. It's basically a drug prevention camp and a violence prevention camp that we do every year. It's at different schools all across Tennessee. So this year it was at UT Martin, but the year before it was at Austin Peay. So what we do is we get up to 700 kids from all across the state and just tell them about what drugs can do to you, how violence can affect, your children or your peers and people that are surrounding you. So that's what we do at the camp. And here's some other things. It says, I can't really see it. Making good decisions leads to a positive future. And I actually helped them write that part because making decisions does lead to a positive future. You make positive decisions, then of course your futures will be positive. But if you make poor decisions, of course your future will be poor. And this is the organization that I'm currently in at Tennessee State University called Black Incorporated. Black Incorporated stands for Brotherhood, Love, Achievement, Culture, and Knowledge. And what we do with this organization is we catch the freshmen that are coming into college to let them know, hey, this is what you should do and this is what you should not do as a male, because the odds were already against you before you even got here. So you got past one milestone by getting here. So now we're going to give you what it takes to get out of here, because we don't want you to stay here. We don't want you to just think, okay, I'm just going to be here, graduate, and then not do anything else. Once you leave here, you still have a job to do. That is what we teach in our organization at Tennessee State. This was my induction night when I got inducted into the program. I have 18 brothers that are on the same generation line with me. I got close to these brothers, and we all had one common goal, and that was to teach other men about the things that we've learned and the things that we've endured in our past. Because everyone has a past, and everyone's story deserves to be told. Because my story can influence other people. It could even influence somebody here today to want to, stand up and lead and be a great leader for the people that are behind them. It's my induction night. These two people in the picture are the closest brothers that I had because they come from the same city, the same area that I was in, and we endured a lot of the same things. The last thing it says is it takes everyone to make a difference. So again, I'm going to do the chant. Y'all could do it with me. Just repeat after me. I am somebody. And it takes everyone to make a difference. Thank you.
our last presenter is the Assistant Director of the Service System Program at the UCLA Duke National Center for Child Traumatic Stress. Here to tell us the story behind trauma in the brain, please welcome Dr. Isaiah Pickens.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's really interesting to hear the voice of God introduce you as everyone watches you on stage. It's a great feeling. So thank you. So I've been given the great honor of talking about trauma in the brain in just a few minutes. So I really appreciate being invited here, though. This is a great event. I come to you guys from California, and I grew up in DC, and so I knew I was going to sweat here, but y'all got to get it together with the humidity here. And so let's jump right into this because I know it's lunchtime, and I want to start by talking about a story. I want to tell you all a story. And for the sake of this story, we'll call the guy who I'm talking about, his name, we'll call him Mike. And so Mike, he grew up in a neighborhood that many of you are probably familiar with. It was crime-ridden, drug-infested, gangs everywhere, and he was raised by a single mother. And this community that he was a part of, for many people, they will look out at it and think that this is something that's going to take anyone down, especially a kid who's coming up in this neighborhood, in this environment. And as we look at this young man and the challenges that he faced, what was remarkable about him is that he was able to avoid being a part of gangs. He was able to avoid being a part of the drug-involved culture. And he was actually able to achieve a scholarship to a private school. But like anyone, any person, any teenager, he dealt with stress. And what stress can do is it can build up pressure. And so when we talk about building up pressure, we're talking about someone feeling the weight of what's going on with them. So like any teenager, he likely dealt with problems with friends or relationships. And these are stresses that everyone faces, and they feel the pressure of this building up. But unlike some people, Mike didn't just deal with regular types of stress, regular types of stressful life events. He dealt with extreme stressful life events. And if we bring these slides up really quick, still does take everyone. That's still true. It's just not my slides. But what he dealt with were what we call traumatic life events. And a traumatic life event is anything that makes you feel that your life is in danger or you'll seriously be hurt, or someone around you, their life is in danger or seriously will be hurt. And so Mike, at the age of 8, saw his best friend killed and had to hold him in his arms. And then his mother dealt with very, very difficult relationships with partners. Her partners, several of them, physically abused her, and Mike had to witness that. And what really took Mike to a place where he felt that it was too much was when he was 16 years old, he found out that his brother was killed by gun violence. Y'all know where this is going. And then what happened was, this is a big balloon. I didn't mean for it to be this big. But what happened? The dollar store, you get what you can get. But what happened was this stressful life event, this extremely stressful life event, made Mike feel that he needed to carry a gun to protect himself. And during the time that he carried the gun, for about a year, he held it on him, and eventually he shot another gang member to defend himself. And the gang member was seriously injured. But again, another highly stressful life event for Mike. Lord, it popped. It popped. It popped. I was as afraid as you were, just so you know. But what happens when someone feels like they're going to pop? What happens is they move into a backward slide. One slide forward. Oh, am I going back? Let's see. All right, there we go. Laser, all right. That turns it off. I promise you guys. All right. Could you guys tell me which one's the forward? The green. Okay, that's doing this though. Okay, let's go to the next one. I promise I'm not a stand-up. All right, okay, here we go. I'm a real psychologist. So what happens when you feel like you're about to pop? What happens is you go into survival mode. And this is how trauma impacts the brain, just like any disease, any virus. It impacts the brain because it rewires the brain to always be on alarm, always be ready for threat, always think that things that are happening around them, around the person, is unsafe. And so in Mike's case, when you're dealing with these stressful life events, the regular ones, but also the extreme life events that are traumatic events, what it does is it starts to program a part of the brain that we call the limbic system, and specifically the amygdala. This back part of the brain is probably one of our most primitive areas of the brain. And what it does is it assesses threat, and it's responsible for us being aggressive towards other people. Now here's the thing, when someone is highly active and that alarm system is constantly going off, it's hard for them to use the frontal part of the brain that we call the frontal lobes, but for this purpose, we'll call it the thinking part of the brain. That's the part of the brain that deals with us stopping and making wise decisions. Being able to say, I can wait to get the car that I want, or I see that this person is running at me, but they're not actually running at me to threaten me, they're running because they're trying to catch the bus. It's what helps us read situations accurately. And the thing about trauma is that it can constantly make you feel that you need to survive. And behind any survival instinct is a deep desire to feel safe. And when we deal with kids and people in general who've experienced trauma, who constantly feel like they're about to pop or they have popped already, they are doing the best that they know how to stay safe, even though that might not be the best thing to keep them safe. They are still reliving that trauma. They are still in crisis mode, even though there's no crisis around. And that's what causes the conflict between not only within themselves, but also towards other people. And so when we look at how people respond in this situation, part of what we're looking at is, if you could go to the next slide, is some of these responses that young people have. And so when we look at what trauma can lead to, just take a look at some of these different responses that are coming up here on screen. Yep. Young people and people in general, when they are experiencing trauma, again, can sometimes feel that the trauma is ever present, or the threat, I should say, is ever present. And so ways of thinking about situations, like sometimes thoughts pop into their head that take them back to that place. Or if we look at how someone might feel that they need to avoid situations that remind them of the trauma that they've experienced. Or they might even have physiological reactions that come back to them when they are in situations that remind them of the trauma. One of the most important processes that goes on when we talk about trauma's impact on the brain is that when a person feels threatened and that alarm system is activated, that back of the brain that I told you about, what it does is it sets off a series of cascading events, one of which is setting off our sympathetic nervous system. So this is what's responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze response. And what this is when we feel threatened, when we hear something, It makes us get mobilized and ready to protect ourselves from this threat, right? Now, this might not happen in today's Baltimore, but in the Wire Baltimore, if you heard someone walking behind you at night, right, and you might start feeling your body tense up. You might start feeling that you need to get ready and either run away, or if you're like me, you find your keys and they become this makeshift weapon just in case, right? And you're protecting yourself because your body has taken in information that says it's threatened. Imagine living like that every second of your life. That's what many of our kids deal with when they have experienced trauma, not only trauma as children, but ongoing trauma in our community. And so when we talk about situations such as gun violence, when we talk about physical abuse, sexual abuse, rape, these are experiences that constantly make young people feel like they're going to pop. And another thing to keep in mind is that these experiences build up. Just the way that balloon built up over time, if someone doesn't have a healthy way to release that pressure, to release that stress, it gets bigger and bigger and has a greater impact on who they are. One of the important parts of the story that I told you about Mike, which actually comes from a prominent psychiatrist, Dr. Richard Dudley, who wrote for the Harvard Business publication about his forensic interview with this young man when he was on trial for court, was that many of the officers felt that he was remorseless about his act. But in actuality, he had learned to survive by not showing emotion. And by not showing emotion and by numbing himself out, this was actually one of his reactions to the trauma. And so we go to the next slide here, looking at a young man named Ian who dealt with different traumas. I'm just going to ask you guys to go to the next one. All right. Who dealt with different traumas. Look at what he says. So a lot of things that made me scared or made me nervous, they don't scare me no more. They don't affect me. Like if a whole bunch of dudes kept on looking at me, I used to feel nervous. And if someone kept on like giving me mean looks, I used to get nervous. It don't happen no more. It's like some of the feeling is just gone. If they look at me now, I look at them right back like what? On the street, people might look at this and say, you know, he finally grew a pair. He's finally a man. But in actuality, what we're seeing is a reaction to trauma. And many times, particularly in our young Black and Latino male communities, we are reinforcing traumatic stress reactions, symptoms of trauma. That's what post-traumatic stress disorder is. Symptoms of trauma, and saying that's what it means to be a man. And so it's important for us to recognize these reactions for what they are, because even though people say you shouldn't be afraid, fear is a good thing because it keeps you out of situation. What makes it bad is when it becomes overwhelming. And it overwhelms you to the point that you respond to situations in a way that isn't accurate. So someone comes to speak to you and you think that they are trying to disrespect you and you yell at them and it escalates. You might have misread that situation. The fear has overwhelmed you and now you're responding inaccurately. But knowing that, okay, I shouldn't walk down this street because I don't know who's down there or what might happen, and keeping yourself safe is a very healthy response. And so part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to help young people better understand how to respond to situations that are actually threatening in a healthy way, and the ones that aren't threatening, helping to respond to those situations in a way that also makes sense. And so really quickly, I want to give you 3 quick points or 3 ways that we can start facilitating this healing process. The first way is through our recognizing triggers and early warning signs. And so a trigger is just anything that reminds someone of the trauma. And what it does is it allows people to know, I need to be aware of what sets me off, that what makes me want to pop, and it starts the healing process. The next, on the next slide, as you'll see, is, and the second thing that you want to do is you want to start helping the person understand the skills that they bring to the table. Resilience is this ability to bounce back after difficult life situations. All of you all in here, whether you are going through something small or major, have survived something. And being survivors gives you several skills that allow you to survive other stressful life events in the future and survive it in a healthy way. And if we go to this next slide right here, what we understand is that when someone is able to survive, they can use skills that they have, but sometimes they might not have certain skills. And they have to learn new coping strategies. And so, as you can see here, the second way that you deal with it is being able to use and develop new coping strategies. The last way to deal with stress and to deal with these triggers that you might face, the last way is we have to be able to understand our story. Many times when people experience trauma, like the story before, I think these were some beautiful stories before, we want to run away from that experience. We don't want to be associated with it, even though it seems overwhelming. Trauma can be all-encompassing. It can make a person feel like that's their identity. And while that's not healthy, it's also not healthy to say that this isn't a part of my experience. This isn't a part of my story. And so what therapy does and what we work to do with the community is to help people incorporate that part of their experience into their story, but to also understand how they've grown from it and to better understand how they've learned new skills to deal with the reactions that come from it. And so it's not about eliminating the trauma, it's about being able to better understand how that unfolds. I want to end with a really quick story. There was a youngster that dealt with a tremendous amount of difficult situations. He grew up kind of like a prince, a young prince. His mother and father loved him, but he had one of those uncles that you really don't want to invite to the cookout, but he always shows up. He was always into something mischievous. He was always doing something that got people in trouble. And one day he was around the father's house and he had created this melee. And this melee broke out. The son was still there. The youngster was there. And the father came out. He said, I got to help my brother in this situation. And during the course of the melee, the youngster saw his father get killed. And the only thing that gives me hope about this situation is that he grew up to be the Lion King. Talking about the movie. Talking about the movie. Let it sink in. I'm talking about the actual movie, The Lion King. Let's build up Lion Kings throughout our community. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Pickens, thank you, Kelsey, Wanye, Commissioner Evans. It shows again just the breadth and the skill and talent of all of you. So here we go. Transition time to lunch. I know you all want that. I want you back though at 1:30. So I've locked eyes with all of you. I've seen your name tags. I'll be watching you in the hallways. Workshops start at 1:30, and then we'll transition back into the ballroom at 2:45 to start promptly at 3 o'clock to hear from the Attorney General. Enjoy your lunch. Network as you go. Thank you.